Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen fired me wrongfully, so I ended her company. Hey everyone, I decided to share my story. It all took place 17 years ago, but I feel like it belongs here. At that time, I was 20 years old and dated my first true love. We'd been together for 1.5 years already, and everything was great. Her mother really liked me, and she had her own company which traded fashion clothes for kids. She made a ton of money. They needed someone to drive one of their 3 5-ton trucks, and she came up to me with the idea to hire me because I was unhappy with the job that I had. So as a win-win situation, I accepted her offer and we started working together. Job was okay, even though I had to work a huge amount of overtime because she thoroughly introduced me to how the whole company worked. She had a huge storage facility, a store, and 2 trucks, one that I drove and a big one. I worked for her for like 1 year, and in that time, I knew every single thing about the company because she trusted me with also the dirty secrets. This later came in handy. This is where things took a huge turn. I found out that my girlfriend cheated on me with her ex, and as a result, I broke up with her instantly. It was an ugly situation, and after it went down, I called her mother and told her what was going on, and that I don't want to mix things with business, so I will still be there for work, even though I don't want to see her daughter again. She said everything is all right, but of course she sided with her daughter, and I felt that she's mad at me because of the breakup. I went to work and acted as a professional should, took all the drama aside. However, soon after, she singled me out and started looking for mistakes so she could discipline me. This had been going on for months, and I realized she was just waiting for an excuse to fire me, but I wasn't gonna give her that reason easily. She was upset that she couldn't find big mistakes, and the small ones she often just made up were not enough to terminate me. So she came up with a plan. On the truck, we had a power generator, which provided a light and a power for laptop, a printer, and so on. It worked in 2 ways, with fuel when we were on the road and with a cable in case we were at the storage. But it was not made by a company. They just hired an electrician for that, and he made an error, so we had to flip a switch all the time if we used it with a cable connection, otherwise it would burn out. As I loaded the truck, she convinced a coworker to flip the switch back, and after a few minutes, the lights were gone and I noticed something was wrong. It burned out, of course, but I knew I didn't forget the switch because I had loaded the truck for an hour and it only took 5 minutes tops to burn out, so it couldn't have been me. She didn't even hear me out. She just started yelling and fired me on the spot and stated that she was going to pay the repairs out of my last salary, so don't expect any money from her. I didn't take that lightly, and I told her, I don't think you want to go this way with me, but she refused to listen. It took a few days for me to cool down, but I wanted to give her a last chance. I called her and told her even though I knew what was going on and that she did set me up, if I get my money, I will call it an end and we don't have to see each other again. She told me to buzz off, so I came up with a plan. First, because I knew that the store she had didn't have a bathroom, which was illegal in my country, the shop assistants had an agreement with a restaurant on the opposite side to go there if they needed. I reported this to the authorities, and the next day they closed the shop because of this violation and told her that she can't open up until they have a bathroom. She called me right away and asked me if I had anything to do with this. I laughed and told her, "Didn't I tell you that you don't want to go this way with me?" And I hung up. I knew that we worked so much overtime that me and the other driver had so much overtime on the cards. It records how many hours you drive and how fast, and when you stopped. So I called the authorities again and told them everything. They went and checked all the records and gave the company a brutal fine. She sent me text messages all day long after that. I replied, "Ain't done yet." Then silence. Few hours went by and my phone rang. She called and asked me if we can talk it over. She even said she'd send my last paycheck, but I shut her down immediately and told her, too late for that. Then I called the fire department and told them the wires that they had in the walls of the storage were outdated, which caused short circuits daily, and that they only had 2 fire extinguishers for the whole place when they should have had like 12 to 15. On that very day, they had to close the storage as well so she lost the last place where she could make money for months until they got everything up to date and renewed all of the wires, which cost a huge amount of money. Because of the fines she got from the different authorities, she couldn't afford these renovations, of course. Few months later, she filed for bankruptcy. I know, because my ex-girlfriend called me with, "I hope you're happy, jerk. You made my family bankrupt." I never got my paycheck, but at that point, I didn't even care anymore. I was happy with the outcome. I hope you enjoyed my story. Have you ever gotten sweet revenge on a boss who did you wrong? If so, how did you do it? Please let us know. I got revenge on my co-host. Just wait till you find out what I put in your coffee this morning. Move your car. Okay. I'm the 19 female, daughter of my normally very nice parents. We had new neighbors move in about 2 years ago, and for the most part, we've just let them be. They're a little annoying sometimes, and there were a couple instances where we had to complain about the overwhelming noise of their weekend parties at night. But other than that, they're pretty okay neighbors. We've never had a problem with them until recently after several strikes against my family. Strike 1, destructive dogs. So our neighbor's family and our family own dogs. My dogs are very gentle and spend most of their time indoors. We live in Southern California, and when this incident happened, it was in the middle of summer, so we let our dogs stay inside to keep cool. Their dogs are very aggressive and are raised as outside dogs. Every time I let my dogs out in the backyard for some fresh air, my neighbor's dogs will attempt to break through the wooden fence dividing our properties via digging, climbing, scratching, etc. The digging was easy to stop. We just filled in the holes with dirt. But at some point, their dog managed to create a hole in the wall large enough for their dog to squeeze their face in, so about the size of a dinner plate. We have cameras, so we caught everything on tape. My parents are pretty understanding, so my dad went and talked to my neighbors, offering to pay half of the damage since it's our shared property line. The neighbor's wife, who we're going to call Lying Sally for this story, called my dad a liar and accused our dogs of damaging the fence, which we knew wasn't true, and my dad told her we had proof it was her dogs and demanded that my family pay for the damages. They fought over it and nothing got solved, so eventually my dad conceded and nailed some plywood over the gaping hole. Problem solved. But this was only the first strike. Strike 2. Just why? The next incident is honestly really stupid, and I don't even know why Lying Sally bothered lying. So this incident happened about a few days after we had to call our third noise complaint on one of their parties again. Like seriously, who blasts Let It Go at 10:30 p.m. at night? I wish I was making this up. My mom is getting out of her car in our driveway when Lying Sally walks right up to her and accuses her of yelling at their lawn mowing guy to not mow their lawn so loudly at 7:30 a.m. My mom was very confused. She's never talked to the guy who comes over to mow their lawn. We've never cared about any of our neighborhood's business in general. We have a neighbor across the street who revs his motorcycle at 6 a.m. and another neighbor who does construction stuff in his garage for a hobby. My family has been living here for almost 20 years. We're very chill with our neighbor's noise and noisy hobbies normally. Long story short, my mom confronted the lawnmower guy one morning and asked him if she's ever talked to him before, and he told her no. Lying Sally saw this and ran out of the house to confront my mom. She screams, "Why are you talking to him?" And so my mom replies, "Because you're a lying jerk." And so that's the gist of it. I don't know why Lying Sally even bothered lying about that. At this point, we were convinced Lying Sally was a nutcase. Strike 3, the point where I finally stepped in. For the past month, my neighbors have stooped to a new low by hogging all of the parking space in front of our house whenever they get the opportunity. My family has 3 cars. 2 usually sit in our driveway, and the third is parked curbside in front of our house. My neighbors have 2 cars, both of which they park alongside the curb in front of both of our houses. The curb our houses share is only big enough for 2 cars. They've stopped using their driveway entirely just to park their 2 cars on the curb, which forces us to park our third car further down the street. It's not a big deal, but what they were doing was petty, so my parents became petty too. The moment they would move their cars to go to work, my parents would move our third car back into its spot on our half of the curb. This went on for almost an entire year, until at some point an unspoken truce was made and they stopped their petty scheme. Things returned back to normal until I accidentally messed it up. In my defense, I was driving home with a third car late at night. It's dark. I accidentally back up way too far and park the car smack dab in the middle of the curb, so my car is literally in the middle between our houses. I'm tired from working all day, so I don't think much of it since our neighbor still has a whole entire driveway to themselves. Trust me, their driveway is just like ours. It's made to fit 2 cars. The next morning, I wake up to the sound of my parents arguing downstairs. Turns out, our neighbors have parked one of their cars in their driveway and the other is parked in front of our third car on the side of the curb. This wouldn't be a problem if half of the hood of their car wasn't sticking out into our driveway. The problem with this is that if we tried to back out the car, the one closest to their car, in our driveway, we might hit their car, and I'm pretty sure that was on purpose. I was done with their games, so I marched over next door and rang their doorbell. The husband, we'll call him Pig for this story, opens the door and he's recording me as if I'm going to attack him, which is ridiculous. I'm 5'2" and he's close to 6 foot. If anything, I should be the scared one. The conversation goes like this. Me: is it okay if you can move your car? Jerk: no, the police told me I can park anywhere I want because it's a public road, and they even told me I can record you. Me: I don't even care about you recording me. I just need you to move your car. You have an entire driveway to yourself. It's just common courtesy to not block your neighbor's car in their driveway. Jerk: you guys can still get out. It's not that bad. Me: yeah, but we just don't want to hit your car by accident while backing out. Is that a threat? No. I'm just saying that we don't want to pay for the damages of your car because you didn't want to move it, and I can't guarantee that we won't hit it. It's pretty darn close. I don't care. I shouldn't have to move my car. You move your car. I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere, so I let him slam the door in my face, and I walked away. I went back inside my house and got on my laptop to make sure that, yes, it is indeed illegal to park in front of someone's driveway, even partially. So my neighbor does have to move by law. However, I wanted to be a petty jerk, so I moved my car. I grabbed my car keys and carefully backed up the car, again, the one closest to his poorly parked car, so that the back half is inches away from the front of Jerk's car. So my car is now blocking Pig's car from pulling out into the street and leaving. My car is also blocking the sidewalk, which I know is illegal, but I already had this planned out. Basically, I caged in his car and held it hostage for a couple of days. Either Jerk or Lying Sally would have to come and apologize to make me move the car, which I knew was very unlikely. Or, Part 4, Victory. Sure enough, as I predicted, Jerk called the cops a few days later and reported me. His face was so smug as the officer told him that I can't legally box in someone's car like that and block the sideway with my vehicle. I told the officer that I understood and that I'll move my car, but I immediately pointed out that it's illegal to partially block the entrance point to someone's driveway as well, and that Jerk's car is crossing that line by over 2 feet. The smile on Jerk's face vanishes and his face turns red while the officer tells him that he's going to have to move his car as well. So I back up my car and I'm grinning like a cat who's caught its prey, while Jerk has to move his car into his driveway. I also made sure to move our third car back into its rightful spot as well. Have you ever had a neighbor who you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know. Now that's what I call a game of cars. Vroom, 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 vroom. Am I the jerk for not going to my mom's birthday after her husband got rid of my cat? My mom remarried when I, 29 male, was 14. My sister and brother were 12 and 9. From the beginning, none of us liked Ben and didn't consider him our stepdad. It was obvious he didn't like us either. He literally divided our fridge between stuff that was ours and what was his. Separate milk, cereal, eggs, soda, etc. Everything he paid for, we weren't allowed to touch, even if it was the same brand. It was weird, but whatever. Our mom bought us food and what we needed. Ben was super controlling too. Always told us our friends weren't allowed in his house. He's the one who moved in with us, even if my mom said it was okay. We weren't allowed to sit on his couches, so we always sat on the living room floor. Expected us to be silent in the house 24/7, never let us go outside, etc. I was a stubborn little jerk, so I butted heads with him the most, while my mom played mediator between us. Even now that we're all older, we still dislike him, only tolerate Ben for our mom when we visit. My brother in particular hates him, and sometimes they have screaming matches. Last month, when we met up at their house, crap got out of hand with their argument, and my brother revealed he knows Ben was the one who got rid of my cat when he went missing. This caught me off guard, but I got on Ben's case and told him to tell me the truth. And it was true after all. My brother saw Ben with a cat in his car driving off once. Ben confessed he was tired of all the hair and my cat roaming around everywhere, so he took my cat to a shelter an hour away. I almost lost it right then and there, and my mom tried to calm me down. She had known about it too back then, but never told me because my cat had already been gone for months. But according to her, she made sure Ben knew how horrible that was. Then I took off and told them I'm not speaking to them anymore, and she shouldn't expect me at her birthday, which was a few days ago. My heart was pounding, and I cried a little in my car. It felt like I lost my cat all over again. I had spent months looking for him, and all that time he was at a shelter. Who knows if he was even adopted, because he was an older cat. My brother's the only one who apologized for never telling me and for bringing it up like that. Everyone else is telling me to let it go already, because Ben made that mistake years ago. They said my mom was extremely hurt that I didn't show up to her birthday, so this was very immature of me to be angry over something done a long time ago. I spoke to her, and she apologized for what happened back then, but it didn't make it right for me to shut them out on an important day. So she also feels I was in the wrong for refusing to go when every birthday I've been there, and it means a lot to have all of her kids there celebrating. I'm caught in the middle, still feeling emotionally raw over this whole thing, and not really sure if I was the jerk for not going. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Ben? Please let us know.
Mom's the biggest jerk of them all. Why would you be with someone like that and have them around your family? I'm seldom at a loss for words, but bruh.
All she had to do was nothing. Context. Names and some details changed for privacy. I'm on mobile, etc. Players. We've got me. We've got the manager, Lady Catherine, who's in her 60s. We've got managing partner, Bennett, male in his 50s. We've got my partner, Gardner, male 47. We've got partner I'm babysitting, Bingley, male 44. We've got my friend/coworker, Charlotte, who's in her 30s. I'm a professional attorney wrangler for a big legal firm. If you've watched Suits, I'm Donna if she was wound tighter than a child's music box. As a legal admin, I have to keep a tremendous amount of information straight. Every county and every U.S. state has their own court system, their own rules, and their own idiosyncrasies. I have 5 attorneys on my team. Despite the TV shows, it's pretty unusual for a lawyer to have a special secretary all their own, unless they are very important, so 5 is a solid number. Because of the lockdown that took over the world last year, a secretary that left in January of 2020 has not been replaced yet, and I've been babysitting one of the partners, Bingley, in the meantime. It's been a fun learning opportunity as Bingley works for an entirely different region and type of law than the rest of my team. Also, he has a case where a truck exploded, was empty, which is awesome. Story. My manager, Lady Catherine, is the worst. You know the type. She plays favorites. Her best loved word is no. She must be involved in everyone's conversation because she is just that important and necessary. We don't get along because I'm a stubborn know-it-all who's been proven right a few too many times. Highlights include forbidding me from using the same resources other admins had access to, on her orders, including backup admins when my workload was too big, and then denying my overtime requests. I literally had no way to do my job some days. It's worth noting that the reason Bingley's secretary left was specifically because of Lady Catherine. In fact, 4 additional admins quit over the year explicitly because of her. Anyway, at this point, I'd been working with Bingley for almost a year. It was November 2020, and we had settled into a pretty good routine. I'd gotten used to filing pleadings in a different state and no longer needed to double-check all my work for nuance. Because law still operates in the Stone Ages, a few U.S. states still require hard copy filing. Anything we want the judge to read has to be sent by actual mail, on actual paper, to arrive in the judge's actual hands. It's a pain. Most states let you file electronically, but whatever. Bingley mostly only has cases in one of the hard copy states. Lady Catherine, in her excessive wisdom, butted in uninvited and instructed me to include a cover letter when mailing a new filing. This confused me, as I had been filing for almost a year and no one, including the admin who originally trained me, had mentioned a cover letter. I told her this, and she basically told me to suck it up. I called the court admin to make sure I wasn't crazy and that I hadn't ruined a year's worth of filings, and the court admin literally laughed and said to please not include a cover letter, so I didn't. Imagine my surprise when Lady Catherine called me, writing me up for insubordination. Even knowing the court rules and the judge and the court admin explicitly said to not send a darn letter. She was right because she is always right, and I am, and I quote, a disrespectful little jerk, and she was tired of me. A warning went into my employee file, pending disciplinary measures. The next day, she emailed my team, telling them to reduce my score on my yearly review, as she knew I had been rated too highly for what my abilities really are. It felt to me like she was preparing to fire me by creating a history of poor performance. Well, if you're so tired of me, Madam Manager, I can leave. Within a week of looking, I found a new position. Now here's the issue. I love my team. This is the best work team I've ever been on. We take each other seriously, and we genuinely love each other. A lot of times, admins get pushed around because we don't have fancy degrees, but not here. Calling in to quit, I cried. I cried a lot. I cried to the point that one of my partners, Bennett, asked if I wanted a counteroffer. I said no, because that wouldn't solve anything. He asked what I meant. I told him. I told him about the write-up. I told him how she was trying to falsify my employee review after it had been submitted. I told him the reason 5 admins had left. I told him about how I wasn't allowed to ask for help. At this point, I had given myself hiccups from weeping, and one of the partners on my team, Gardner, was calling him, asking if he and his workload were the reasons I was leaving. So Bennett let me go do other things, like day drink and create a shrine out of legal forms. I thought it was the end of it until a friend in another office, Charlotte, called me asking what I was doing. She doesn't have time to train someone into being the new me, and I was the only admin she actually trusts in my office, so why was I leaving her all alone? I told her, and she told Gardner, and together they plotted. First, Charlotte is the manager in her office, so she is on equal footing with Lady Catherine. They also report to the same person. Charlotte called the district manager and told him that Lady Catherine was driving admins away and that the most recent quitter, me, was the only person who knows how to do a lot of the work on my teams, and my loss was a serious blow. Apparently this is true, which is both heartwarming and terrifying. Meanwhile, Gardner called up a fellow partner and told her that his world would collapse in on itself if I left. He would go to the nearest bridge and jump off of it, which was pretty impressive in a landlocked state. They had to do something. I got a call the next day from Bennett saying they had a counteroffer they were really hoping I'd take. Basically, instead of Lady Catherine, I would report directly to Gardner. Lady Catherine would be forbidden from interfering with me without first asking Gardner for his permission. This solved the issue and I got to stay with my team, so I happily accepted. I thought the debacle was over. The debacle was not over. Unbeknownst to me, after looking at the evidence, exit interviews, emails, memos, Bennett put Lady Catherine on a performance improvement plan and she did not get an end-of-year bonus or raise. Turns out I had been absolutely correct. Lady Catherine's behavior and treatment had been the explicit cause that 6 secretaries quit in less than a year. I got a call last week from Charlotte. I figured she wanted to gossip about coworkers or rant about how a shared client is a big ol' headache, but it was actually to give me a heads up. Lady Catherine had been stripped of her management duties. I no longer had any contact with her, which was great, but it also meant I didn't see that her behavior had actually doubled down on the admins unfortunate enough to still be under her thumb. She had missed every single one on the benchmarks of her performance improvement plan. Charlotte had called me to ask my opinion on who should be the new manager, as I know everyone and she was helping cover some things as an outside manager. Now, I know some of you are thinking, yes, become the manager and fire Lady Catherine, but I am not a sadist. I want to stay on my team and do what I do best, which is being a cheerfully annoying, respectful little jerk. I told her one of the more senior admins would probably need some guidance, but would be amazing at it. No one has to deal with Lady Catherine anymore. She's now a mere paralegal and not anyone's manager at all. If she had just left me alone and not interfered where she wasn't needed, none of this would have had to have happened. All she had to do was nothing. A driver hits my truck and refused to get insurance involved. Enjoy the jerk tax. This happened just a week ago. I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and I was in off-duty mode since the day before, so I was stationary the whole time. While I was in my bed trying to sleep, I suddenly heard a loud crunch, followed by a pretty rough rocking of my truck. When I got out to check, I saw a truck trying to park in the left spot and struck me on his blind side, right side of my trailer. The damage was, my driver's side mirror was folded and there are cracks in my left quarter fender. The driver got out, checked the damage for both my truck and his trailer. I told him that I will need his registration, driver's license, and insurance, the whole 9 yards. At first, he was a little hesitant to give the information, but ended up following the rules. I did the same for him. Then he proceeded to tell me that he would prefer to pay the damage in cash or check. The reason was, if insurance was involved, his company would charge him $2,500 automatically, so it's a huge loss for him. Even though I don't agree with that and still think insurance is better, I comply and talk to my manager about the whole situation. At first, he wanted to claim through insurance too, but after seeing the damage, it was very minor. He settled and told me to charge the driver $1,200 if he wants to pay cash or check. I told the driver what my manager thinks the cost of the repair is. He was more hesitant than when I asked for his information, so I told him it's either $1,200 or insurance. Then he got this bright idea to try to get evaluations from the professional in the nearby shop for the cost of parts and labor. He even tried to fix my side mirror, which to my surprise was fixed. Okay, so no need to replace the side mirror, but the fender is still cracked, so that needed to be fixed. His reason to get professional evaluation is so that he can get a receipt for tax purposes, so it's understandable. I told him that I will need to leave in 4 hours, which is true, so I won't have all day to sit around in the mechanic shop. Not to mention, I didn't get much sleep since I need to take care of the damage. He was very assuring that it will be very quick. It won't. Shortest time I've ever been in a shop is 8 hours, so I comply. We drove to the nearest shop, which is 30 minutes away. Inside the truck, he kept saying that $1,200 is too much to fix a fender. I didn't say anything in retaliation because I actually do not know how much it costs to fix a fender. I just trusted my manager. When we arrived, the tech said that he can't fix the truck within 3 hours. It was fairly busy. So we asked if we can just get an evaluation for the cost of labor and parts, which the tech said that he can do. After 1 hour, the tech came out and gave us a piece of paper for the evaluation. The total came out to be $1,440 for parts and labor, not including the paint job, which is around $400. He was shocked, thinking that he got ripped off by the evaluation. He complained a whole bunch to the tech, but there's nothing the tech could do about it. He asked for their evaluation, he got it. Then he went back to me and asked if it can still go back to the $1,200 cost. I told him, but I thought you wanted to get a receipt for evaluation done by a professional. To say he was stunned was an understatement. He kept making up excuses about the cost, but again, I repeated either this or insurance. He finally complied and wrote me a check for $1,440. After we parted ways, I mentioned to him, remember to keep your words for the paint job. If not, my manager will claim the damages as a hit and run. He looked at me with the dirtiest look he could muster, but he couldn't do anything about it. Oh well, at least he got his receipt. Edit 1. For those who mentioned that I might get burned with cash or check, I actually didn't think of this at first, but that was a very good lesson. Nonetheless, the driver paid me with money order because he couldn't withdraw $1,440 in cash from an ATM and he doesn't bring his checkbook. I guess it's more secure since there's no way money order could bounce. Also, I have all of his information and proof of accident from the parking lot camera. In case he tried to pull anything funny, we can just dial insurance and reveal everything. Don't mess with Sandra. This tale was told to me as a warning when I started on my first post-college job. I am relating it exactly as it was told to me. This occurred in the early 80s, so those of you who've grown up with the internet may not understand how we did things in the olden days. There were no smartphone apps to show Q codes for airline tickets. They were paper, with red carbon mess. Reservations were done by phone. It was primitive by today's standards. Players. Names have been changed, of course. We've got Sandra, super sweet secretary loved by all. True, I worked with her. She was amazing. We've got Fred, Sandra's boss. Tom, local VP. Big Shot, incoming senior manager from back east. And Al, lead engineer on the team. This occurred in Salt Lake City, which if you don't know, family was a huge part of culture. Even at work, family matters took precedence, and local management knew this and allowed for it. Well, Big Shot's office minions noticed some slight irregularities in time cards, like days off without pre-approved vacation requests. So he got himself transferred to the Salt Lake City office to straighten things out. Naturally, he was quickly hated. One morning, Sandra got a call from her daughter that she was unexpectedly in town and wanted to have lunch. Naturally, Fred and Tom said okay, but the Big Shot stuck his nose in. Rather than just saying no, he dropped a travel request on Sandra's desk, and it had to be done because he expected to fly out that afternoon. Sandra was heartbroken that she wouldn't get to see her daughter, but she had her work responsibilities. Stopping by to drop off some paperwork, Al noticed that Sandra looked a little down, a huge change from her normal chipper mood. He naturally asked her why, and Sandra explained. Al told her, he had no authority by the way, to go have lunch and we'll take care of it. Big Shot got his travel packets, got on the plane that afternoon, and flew off to his meeting. That's when things started to go wrong. The rental car reservation was invalid, and there were no cars available at any of the agencies. All had a hold on them pending confirmation from some big clients, so Big Shot ended up getting a rent-a-wreck. For those too young or not in the US, there really was a discount auto rental agency by that name. Quality was not job number one. When Big Shot got to the hotel, he found that his reservation was no good. He had to wait around until after the tentative reservations expired, which was after 6 p.m. Getting suspicious, Big Shot looked at his tickets and found that they were one way. He had no flight home. The next morning, Tom flew in to join him, and to say Big Shot was incensed was probably an understatement. He gave Big Shot a packet that was marked extremely urgent that had been left on his desk with a note to take it to Big Shot. It was Big Shot's return ticket. On the way back, Big Shot stopped by the corporate office and got a very senior executive to come with him because of some very serious personnel problems. The next morning, Big Shot led the senior executive and Tom into a meeting with all of Fred's department and began publicly berating Sandra for incompetence and so on. When he got to the part about the tickets, Fred interrupted and told the senior executive that Sandra couldn't have done that. She was on approved time off having lunch with her daughter. This raised the senior executive's eyebrows and got Big Shot even angrier. The senior executive said if Sandra didn't mess up the tickets, who did? Fred stepped forward, then Al, and one by one, every single member of Fred's team stepped forward to take responsibility to protect Sandra from Big Shot's wrath. Tom and the senior executive knew instantly what had happened. Everyone on Fred's team had burned up the phones making tentative reservations for rental cars and hotel rooms, leaving Big Shot stuck with worthless reservations and no alternates. Within the hour, Big Shot's desk was empty and his badges had been turned in. The senior executive stuck around to get to know the team. He was very impressed with how the whole team stuck together and protected their own. After he finished the tale, the engineer said bluntly, "Don't mess with Sandra. We love her and we will make you pay if you upset her." Message received loud and clear. As I worked with Fred's team, I got to understand why everyone loves Sandra. She was an absolute gem in the organization. Efficient, super friendly, just an all-around wonderful person. Entitled parents lose it when boyfriend gives me a ride home. I'll try to keep it short, but I'm still getting crap for this from my family, so I figured I'd share it here and get some opinions. Basically, my church was having a game night, and we were told we could bring some friends. I asked my parents to invite the people from my friends group chat, and they said if the leaders at church agreed, then it was no problem. We have a big group chat with my boyfriend and all of our friends. So I texted the group chat and asked if anyone wanted to come with me and explained that it was a chill game night. A few had plans and others said maybe, but not for sure. My boyfriend and only one other person said they were free to go. The day came and my boyfriend showed up, but the other person canceled due to a family emergency. No one else could go. Everything was good and I introduced him to everyone and the leaders as a friend because I like to keep my life private. My boyfriend is very understanding of that. We kept it cool and didn't even hold hands or go off somewhere by ourselves. We were just behaving as friends. We all had a great time. At the end of the night, I called my parents and they couldn't pick me up due to them working night shift. So they asked me to find someone who would be able to take me home, or if absolutely necessary, call my aunt, who just came back from work that was almost 2 hours away to pick me up. I asked around if anyone was able to take me home, and everyone either had a full car or was going the opposite way. My boyfriend offered to drive me because he was heading in the same direction, and I said okay. He dropped me off, and I said thank you, and I called my parents to let them know I found a ride, and we moved on with our life. A couple of days later, during service, my dad asked one of my leaders at church who drove me home so he could say thank you, and they told him that a friend I had brought with me was nice enough to drive me when they all couldn't, their exact words. My parents got really mad that a person of the opposite gender drove me home, and I didn't tell them. I didn't because I didn't think it was a big deal. I don't understand why it was such a big deal anyway. I'm not the only person who literally gets rides from people of the opposite gender. Most of the people there have boyfriends and girlfriends, and they came together all the time. We literally drove straight home, and he knew where I lived because he's come over a few times before. They said I embarrassed them by doing that, and I was completely wrong and forced me to apologize. My mom cried for a few days, saying that she doesn't know who I am because I'm not the daughter she raised. I don't think I did anything wrong in the situation, but it's been a few months and it's still being brought up by literally my parents, cousins, and aunt, so now I'm not too sure. Edit. I'm 18 and my boyfriend is 19, about to be 20. Also, my parents have met him and he's been over to our house a few times. Edit 2. I'm a woman. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her parents? Please let us know.
I hope you're able to move out of there soon, OP. At 18 years old, they shouldn't be treating you like this.
If you want a refund, you have to buy the product from us first. The day was like any average retail day. The store I work at is run relatively well, so the day passes by smoothly. That is, until about an hour before my shift ended, when a teenager comes up to my desk hoping to return some computer parts. This includes RAM, a motherboard, and a CPU. He doesn't have the receipts. However, receipts are not required, as long as I can find the transactions in my point of sale system. Thankfully, he has an account, and I'm able to find the RAM and motherboard. The RAM I was able to give him a refund on, no issue. However, the motherboard was about 50 days old. Our return policy is 30 days, but I was feeling nice. He is a kid after all, and I remember how confusing I found the world when I was his age, which was not that long ago, but feels like a lifetime. I told him I couldn't give him his money back, but he could exchange it for a new one, or get a gift card, which was standard practice for returns outside of 30 days, but within 60. Teen.
Well, I can't have a gift card. My dad will get mad.
Me. Okay, but I can't give you money back. You are well over the return period, so it's either gift card or an exchange. Kid.
I guess I'll get a new motherboard then.
Me. Which one do you want?
The same one, I guess.
At this point, I realized that I had forgotten why he wanted to return it. It wasn't required anymore, as any open product at this point would be sent back to the distributor for inspection anyway. Turns out, his computer wasn't working after he put it all together, so he needed new stuff. Kid.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working.
Me. Okay. Did you want to go look around for other stuff? Or did you want me to call a salesman over to grab you another board?
Just give me a new one. Now, are you going to refund me for the CPU?
I hadn't gotten to the CPU yet, as I was still pretty new to returns, and I was doing them one at a time to make sure I didn't mess up. Now, of course, I have to be extra careful about returns, making sure the item is the correct one and all of that. Now, I have to be extra careful with CPU returns, so I opened up the package to do my checks, and I instantly realized why this customer's computer wasn't working. For those not in the know, the CPU is a small square chip that essentially acts as a computer's brain. Super important and extremely fragile piece of equipment. Depending on the brand of CPU, there may or may not be pins on the bottom that are essential for the functionality of both the CPU and the rest of the computer. They are extremely easy to bend and break. However, it's also extremely easy to not bend and break them, so there really isn't a good reason for someone to damage a CPU. This kid's CPU looked like he had taken a hammer to it. Me. Well, this is why your computer isn't working.
What?
The pins are smashed. Nothing at the computer can work with damage like this.
Oh, well, can I return it?
I didn't want to say anything yet because I felt bad for the kid, but we were unlikely to take it back due to the damage, and that he clearly bought it over 30 days ago, as I had yet to find the receipt for the CPU. It was a pretty expensive CPU, so I was hoping that management would make an exception and let him exchange it. So I kept looking for his receipt for the CPU. He didn't have a lot of transactions, so I figured I could just brute force it and go through them one at a time, and yet I couldn't find it. It wasn't on any of his receipts. Me. I'm not finding the CPU under your account. Is there another name it could be under? Kid.
We could try my dad's. His name is Dad.
I look up his name and no account shows up. Me. There's no account under your father's name.
Oh, he doesn't have an account. I'm the only one who shops here.
It's at this point that I realize that I'm dealing with a teen who is slightly stupider than your average teenager. However, I keep my composure and keep moving forward. I try not to treat people differently based on their intelligence. In a last-ditch effort, I check the transactions based on the CPU serial number. We have to manually attach transactions to accounts, and sometimes the cashiers neglect to do that for any number of reasons. However, when I scanned the serial number, nothing popped up. That was weird. Me. Did you buy this at this location or a different location?
Different location.
I admit, I should have asked that sooner, so I could have pulled up the remote search window from the get-go. However, when I pulled it up, it showed that he had never made any purchase at any of our other locations. He had only ever shopped at my store's location. Me, thinking that it could be a glitch in my system and hoping that I could access the more complete central server database. Which computer store location did you buy this from?
Oh, I didn't buy this from computer store. I bought this from Amazon.
I just looked at him silently. I didn't know how I got to this point. Why did he think we would take his CPU that he bought from Amazon? So I asked, Me, why are you trying to get a refund for a product you didn't even buy from here?
What do you mean?
You didn't give us the money for this. You gave it to Amazon. Therefore, we don't have money to give back to you. That's Amazon.
So, I want my money back.
Your money isn't here. Your money is at Amazon. If you want your money, you need to go to Amazon.
So you can't take care of it?
No, you didn't give us money for that CPU. That CPU has no monetary value here that I can give back to you.
Can I exchange it?
I'm afraid not. We don't do trade-ins. I assumed he was talking about a trade-in.
No, I want to exchange it.
Internally, I'm banging my head against a wall. How could a teen not understand the concept that a return can only go back to where he originally bought it from. Me. In order to do an exchange, you would have needed to buy the product here or at one of our other locations, but you didn't. You bought it at Amazon. There's nothing here that I can do for you. You need to send this back to Amazon.
So, you're not going to help me?
No. At this point, he leaves, and I'm relieved that he eventually understood. Or so I thought, because not even a minute later, he comes back with my manager.
He wouldn't let me return this and was mean to me. I want a refund.
Manager, I'm sorry about that, sir. Do you have the receipt?
No, but I bought it last month on Amazon.
I kid you not. That's what he said. Manager, why would I give you money for something that you didn't even buy from us?
Are you saying you won't give me a refund?
Manager, there is no refund to give, and nothing I can do for you. The team then storms off to a salesman and says to them,
They were mean to me, called me names, and won't give me a refund for my item.
Salesman, that's not my department. It's their decision when it comes to refunds. The teen then storms off and tries this routine over and over again, each time getting more and more upset over the next 20 minutes until he is quite literally ugly crying to the store's general manager about how horrible everyone there was to him and how we won't give him a refund for his CPU. The general manager then asked him to wait and came to me. General manager, why won't you give him a refund for his CPU? At this point, I don't really care how old he is. Me, he didn't buy it from here. He bought it from Amazon. Ask him. The general manager did just that. When he heard that the teen did, in fact, buy the CPU from Amazon, the general manager essentially asked him why he thought that we'd take it and give him a refund. The teen said someone in the repairs department said that we'd take care of him. This turned out to be a misunderstanding or a lie, as the technician was only saying that I was the one who handled returns, not that I'd definitely, for sure, give him a refund. Eventually, the kid left, tears in his eyes and without a refund. He later left me a survey review that I made fun of him, threw his items on the floor, and refused to give him a refund. We have cameras. My general manager had that review dismissed. It's insanely annoying to get a survey review dismissed, so it shows just how ridiculous the general manager thought this situation was. Have you ever tried to return something but you weren't able to? If so, what was it? Please let us know.
Wish I could return you, Reddit boy. Haven't had any luck so far.
Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law I'm not his kid's mother? My brother-in-law's, Connor, wife passed over a year ago. I had a good relationship with her and their 2 kids. This loss affected everyone. The family got together to help Connor with the kids. He used to live in an apartment. He hasn't worked in a year, and my in-laws were unable to pay for rent anymore. My husband asked if Connor and the kids could stay with us temporarily. I immediately agreed and found time to get everything ready. Once Connor arrived, he did little to nothing when it came to the kids. I started taking care of the kids' needs because he asked. I handled feeding, cleaning, and playing activities, but kids are in constant need of care and attention. Every time his 3-year-old asks him to make a sandwich or help with the bathroom or wearing clothes or anything, Connor just points at me and says Auntie will do it. I end up taking care of it, even though he's got nothing to do. He's either on his laptop or sleeping. One time his 5-year-old was calling for him to help with something, and Connor asked me to go instead. I got annoyed, then he shrugged his shoulders and said he'd just ignore him then, resulting in me handling it. I couldn't ignore it. My husband's a dentist and he's not home always. I work from home, but I too am not always available. I made this clear to Connor, and he said no problem and he would handle it. Yesterday, I was in an important meeting. I was in the office, and suddenly my 3-year-old nephew was knocking on the door, wanting me to help him, and Daddy told him to come to me. I had to pause. I ran out and found my nephew sitting on the floor. I cleaned him up and took him to the bathroom. I was kicked out of the meeting since it wasn't the first time I left. I was mad, and I went to see what Connor was busy with. He was busy playing an online game and talking to a lady. I asked him, and he just brushed me off. I unplugged the device and told him his neglect cost me a meeting and that I already told him my work can't be interrupted to take care of his kids while he ignores them and avoids responsibility. He criticized me, saying a few minutes won't hurt, and brought up how overwhelmed he was and needing help. I snapped, yelled at him that I'm not his kid's mother. He was staggered. Clearly what I said made him too upset to react. He argued with me, and then he left the house. My in-laws took an issue with what I said, calling it ghastly callous treatment towards someone that lost his wife so recently. They offer to help, but then they make excuses, saying I need someone to give me a talking to learn some empathy for those poor kids. My husband said I was right to be upset, but I hurt Connor by what I said, and I shouldn't have handled it like that, making him feel like he and his kids are a burden. They're expecting me to apologize to him. What gets me is that Connor posts pictures of them on Facebook talking about how he's making so much effort to keep them healthy and happy while I'm the one doing the work. He basically lies and pretends to be a caring parent on Facebook. This makes me upset. No idea why he does this. My in-laws don't understand that working from home is also stressful. They claimed it's not real work, but I was just making excuses and causing arguments. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Connor? Please let us know.
Connor sounds very unfit to be a parent. If those in-laws have such strong opinions about this, maybe they should be the ones taking care of his kids.
His high employee turnover stopped being a problem after I quit. You're welcome, boss. This happened in about 2013. I had been offered a job as an assistant at a small fashion e-commerce. I was so excited. There were red flags from the beginning. The existing assistant sat next to me and was a little hesitant when I asked if the company was good to work for, and she told me that a lot of employees had come and gone for various undisclosed reasons, but I was too naive and enthusiastic to really pay attention. I came to find out that our boss, the business co-owner, along with his wife, was not quite the easygoing, fun boss he painted himself to be. He constantly reminded us how lucky we were to be working there, how we could easily be stacking shelves in a supermarket for the same wage. My fellow assistant truly did far too much for the company given her title, and my boss also constantly compared my work ethic to hers, even though I was working through my legal breaks and lunches along with her, never knowing what my finishing time would be, etc. During a period of a couple of months, I witnessed at least 3 other employees quit or be fired. One was let go because she fell ill. One quit on the spot after seeing that we were selling on broken products, or simply wouldn't put up with the unreasonable scheduling. It was coming up to Christmas, and the business was incredibly busy with orders. In addition to giving up my breaks, lunches, and set finishing times, the boss decided that we would all start coming into the office an hour earlier from tomorrow. Not a request. I had taken this on as a part-time job, so I was already struggling to cope and had confided in him about my mental health problems. Now he took my concerns and laughed in my face. Asked if I just didn't want to get up early. Said that he could easily replace me anyway, that he was thinking about firing me, and that he would enjoy seeing me stacking shelves when he next went to the supermarket. That was the final straw for me. I called his bluff. At the end of the workday, I went to his office and quit, surely before he could gloatingly fire me in front of everyone. Now, it must have been a big inconvenience for him to lose an employee 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, but oh well, he could just hire someone else, right? Not quite so easily. Now that I wasn't working, I needed to claim job seekers allowance, UK unemployment benefits, and they wouldn't award it if I had just quit a job on a whim. So I typed up a long, detailed list of everything that was going on in that office, the law breaking, the bullying, and handed it to my job center advisor. She was not happy, and I was informed that the company would no longer be allowed to advertise job openings with them. This was where they were getting all their hires from. Additional nail in the coffin. The boss and his wife had just bought a new, bigger premises to cope with the increased demand for their products. Demand that now couldn't be met because they couldn't hire and keep enough people to pack the orders. A few years after all of this, I looked up the company out of curiosity. It was dissolved in 2016. Of course, I do not believe, nor want to believe, that I brought down this e-commerce all by myself, but it does make me happy that, by calling my boss's bluff, I prevented at least some prospective employees from an awful experience. Am I the jerk for firing a long-term employee for blatant insubordination? I, 34 male, was promoted to a mid-level management position at my job about 4 months with a path towards the executive level. I had worked at this company for almost a decade, and the promotion was given to me after I completed my master's degree. However, my new position is slightly different than the work I was previously doing for the company, so I'm still learning a lot every day and trying my best to catch up to the workers I now supervise. I will admit there's been a bit of a learning curve for me, but for the most part, the people I have working underneath me have been helpful and supportive. Except for James. James is in his 50s and has been with the company for over 20 years. He is stubborn, thinks he knows the job better than anyone else, is very outspoken, and absolutely hates that a person 20 years younger than him is his new boss. From day one, James has questioned almost every decision I have made, not in a supportive or helpful way either. He will undermine me and make a point of calling me out in front of other employees. I admit that he has a wealth of knowledge that I do not yet possess. I have talked with him privately on a couple occasions about how he has behaved since I became his boss. I told him that a lot of what he's doing is unacceptable, and I gave him a written warning after a particularly bad incident where he called me a name loudly enough that I had multiple other employees tell me about it. This was maybe 2 months ago, and he's been better since. But last week, he again openly criticized my decision-making in front of other employees and refused to go along with my plan because it's dumb. So I called him into my office and fired him on the spot. He yelled and pointed his finger in my face, so I told him he either quietly leaves or I have security escort him out of the building and parade him in front of everyone. He shut up and left, but gave me a few parting words on his way out. I tried to address my employees before the rumor mill got too out of hand, and I told them all why I made the decision I did and what I expect of everyone moving forward. Pretty much all of them agreed that I made the right choice, but there are a few older guys who worked with James for a long time that I know don't agree. I can just tell by the way they interact with me now. I asked a guy I trust if there's been a lot of talk amongst the workers, and he said there's only a few guys who side with James. He agrees I did the right thing to remove James' toxicity from the workplace, but there are a few guys who share some of James' views on having a younger boss and think I purposely made an example of him. I think I was pretty tolerant of James, probably for too long, but he was the first person I have ever fired, and I'm still questioning myself over it. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have fired James or not? Please let us know.
Heck yes, I would have fired him. I don't care how long he's been working for the company. That guy needs to go watch some fishing shows and take a nap.
Trying to pay with fake cash and then tell me to do my job? You got it. This happened about 7 years ago. I, male 29, used to work in a store whose name sounds a lot like those cops that ride in planes. This particular day, I was in the register when a well-dressed guy and 3 women walk in. Each takes a card, start walking around and picking things out. I was known for my no BS attitude on the register. You throw money at me, give me attitude, whatever, I'll do it right back at you. So when a coordinator comes to me 30 minutes later and asks me to take the dude and his girls on my register, I already know we're in for a fun time. They rolled up with these 3 carts full of clothes, and not just any stuff. We're talking shoes and boots that cost $300 to $800, expensive handbags, coats, and more. I'm just thinking, oh crap. So they walk up. I start scanning, all the while these ladies are being unpleasant. Finally, I get through it all, and the total comes up to about $3,000. Dude reaches into his coat and pulls out a wad of cash, all crisp $100 bills, and immediately I knew something was off. So I take the money and go to the machine to check it. First bill doesn't pass, neither does the second. So I turn back around and tell the dude that I can't take the money. Before I even get a chance to fully explain, one of the chicks cuts me off and tells me,
"Take the money and do your job."
Cue the malicious compliance. I say, you know what? You got it. Let me get the manager so he can help. See, at our discretion, we can decline a form of payment. Say if 2 of your cards get declined, gotta use cash. Your cash doesn't pass, gotta use a card, or we can just tell you to buzz off. But if we suspect you're using fake money, we gotta try and keep you there while we get the cops. So I got to my manager, cash in hand, and tell him what's up. He goes to the office and checks the money. Now the dude is nervous, but just imagine his pants when the 2 cops walk in and head straight for us. His horrified face made my day. Cops take my statement, and the next thing you know, all 4 of them are getting arrested, while one of the ladies is screaming at me, while I tell her in the most innocent voice I can pull off, "You told me to do my job." Edit. Because so many people have been asking, I believe the shop OP is referencing is Marshall's in the US. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law that he won't be staying with us forever? My fiance, 30 female, and I, 23 female, have been together a little over 5 years. We moved states back in December when her grandmother, that she had been taking care of for the past 4 years, passed. She lived with her little brother, 25 male. He dropped out of high school in 10th grade, had one job that he had for maybe a couple months, and was never taught any domestic skills like cooking, cleaning, laundry, etc. His grandmother believed that men shouldn't have to learn those things. Since he had nowhere else to go, he ended up coming with us when we moved. We're currently staying at mother-in-law's house. Brother-in-law is trying to get a job, and he has put in applications at a lot of places. Now, initially, I had no problem with him. We were friends for a while in high school. Living with him now hasn't been the best. Us 3 share a room/bathroom/tiny kitchen and a part of mother-in-law's house. He's always putting the expectations of cleaning and cooking on me, as my fiance works all day. I work too, just not as long, as he just sits on his computer playing loudly with his online friends all day. If I don't cook something, he'll spend the rest of the night complaining, "I'm starving," even if there's plenty in the cupboards and fridge to make. He just has to do it. Whenever laundry needs to get done, he'll complain about none of his clothes being clean, and he'll just mix his dirty laundry with ours, giving me more work to do. Dishes aren't done? He'll complain. You get the picture. While me and my fiance were discussing apartments and houses to move into to get the heck out of her mom's house, we were talking about potentially finding a place with an extra room so we can have a kid in the near future. He was apparently eavesdropping and asked, "Where would I sleep if you guys did that?" And that there'd be no room for a kid. He apparently assumed he was moving with us. I said, "You can sleep on the couch then," and that made him angry. "That kid can sleep on the couch," in which an argument ensued, where I got angry and said, "I will not let my kid grow up on a dang couch." Then said, "You're not staying with us forever. You'll be fully expected to get a job, find your own place, whether by yourself or with friends, and live your own dang life. I want to be able to get married, have a family, and live a life without a grown man expecting me to do everything for him." He said what I said was uncalled for, and that if I hate him so much, he'll just leave, called me a jerk, and he ran off to his mother. My fiance says she agrees with the message, but that I should not have said it during an argument. I said I shouldn't have been in an argument to begin with, but he made it one and needed to be told what it was. His mother now berates me whenever I see her about hurting her son and that I should apologize and tell him I didn't mean it. But I did mean it, 100%. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother-in-law? Please let us know.
He doesn't want you to have a kid because he wants to be the kid. Seriously though, this guy makes me want to throw up.
Karen keys our car because it's too loud. Characters. We've got me, my brother-in-law, my sister, Karen, my mom, person 1 and person 2. So it all started when I decided I wanted to start learning stick. Since my brother-in-law is the only person I know with a manual car, I had him come over and teach me. When the car starts up, it does make a rather loud rev. We make sure to do it in the afternoon as to not wake people up and trying to be considerate. Anyways, it was about the 3rd or 4th day of him teaching me when she first appeared. Karen. Nice car. Bit too loud for my taste, but it's still nice. Me. Oh, thanks. Mind trying to keep it down a bit? My baby doesn't really seem to like it that much. Me. Yeah, sure. We've been driving in the day so it doesn't wake people up. I didn't know anyone around here had a baby, so I'm sorry about that. It's not a problem. Just be quieter, okay? And with that condescending tone and a smile on her face, she walked off, which kind of made me mad because I just thought it was a friendly chat. It wouldn't be the first time people have talked to me about brother-in-law's car thinking it's mine. I've grown to accept that people will think whatever, so I play along and just tell brother-in-law about it later. 2 days go by with no sign of her. I wake up, get ready, and wait for brother-in-law to come over so we can start my lesson. I walk outside, and lo and behold, she was there. Karen. I thought I told you to keep it down. Me. Sorry, I can't control it. It's just how the car starts, and we're not going to leave it running while we're not in it. That's a waste of gas. Karen. I don't care. Stop being so loud. With that, she was gone. It always annoys me when people complain about cars being loud. A car is a motor vehicle with a combustion engine in it. Of course it's going to make noise. Brother-in-law got to my place and off we went. We came back to my house to eat lunch. About 2 or so hours later, my sister and mom came over and told brother-in-law and I to go look at the car. The entire driver's side was scratched up and even a tire was popped. Only one person came to mind when I saw it. Karen. We, meaning me and brother-in-law, walked down to her house, which was only a few houses down, and knocked on her door. All we hear come from the other side is, "I'm not apologizing." So this led brother-in-law to say, "Then you better have a good case in court, you jerk. That's gonna cost a lot to fix, and I'm suing you for every cent." Karen.
Maybe keep it down then, you jerk.
Brother-in-law. Maybe don't go keying cars and popping tires, and you won't get sued, you jerk. This went on for about 20 minutes. We head back, call the police, and get everything ready for what was about to come. As soon as they got there, we started to explain what had happened, how I was learning stick, how the car was, showed them the damages, told them what the Karen had said, etc. We were making sure our side was accurate, so we made sure our timeline was correct. After a while, we walked with the police to her house, and it went down about as well as you'd expect. Officer 1.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you come out here for a minute? This is the police wanting to speak to you about the car.
Karen.
I'm not apologizing. I told them to keep it down and they didn't. They deserve it.
Officer 2.
Ma'am, what you did is against the law, and they're pressing charges. You have 5 minutes to get out here, or we will get a warrant for your arrest and come back.
Karen.
Nice try, but I'm not stupid. I know my rights, and you're not allowed to enter my home without my consent or a search warrant.
Officer 1.
That's only partially true. We can't search your home without a warrant. However, if we have a warrant for your arrest, we can legally enter your home and place you into custody.
She was stubborn. Again, they went back and forth a bit. After the allotted time set, we went back to my house. The cops left to get a warrant, and we waited. Currently, the lawsuit is in order, and the trial is in a few days. She is in police custody. I have never found it easier to drive a stick shift knowing I won't have to deal with her condescending ways and tones. Edit. First off, stop calling us rude because we couldn't keep it down. We tried to be quiet, but either way, she overreacted, and we also did go to a parking lot to practice. Like I said, we went back to my house for lunch the day she keyed the car. Where do you think we were all day? Also, thanks for all the awards. I really don't post on Reddit in general, so it feels weird having them on a post. Also, we won the case. We got the money, the car is being fixed, and she is moving. Her choice, not the judge's. Edit 2. So I keep seeing some bits talking about the case. I want to apologize for me wording it poorly. We've basically won is what I meant. We have 2 cops that can confirm she admitted to doing it. We have pictures, and we've been looking around the neighborhood asking if anyone saw her actually do it, and so far no one has. I apologize for me being an idiot and having improper wording. Karen demands to cut my hair. I've only had my hair professionally done one time in my life. I know the snarky response is, yeah, and everyone can tell, or something like that. I learned to do my own hair as a teen. I'm 36 and struggling, have 4 roommates to help pay rent, and just don't have the extra money for luxuries outside of getting a bottle of $3 Chuck every other paycheck. Sure, I wish my life was glamorous, getting my hair did and nails with the girls, sipping $8 cocktails, but that's not the lot I was given, so be it. Kathy married into my family, and she does hair for a living. Last time at a family get-together, she zeroed in on me and made a joke like, "Time for a haircut?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I need to trim the ends soon." She gasped dramatically and put her hand on my chest and was like, "You need to? Oh sweetie, that's what I'm here for. Let's get you in, okay?" I shook my head no and said no thanks. I cut my own hair. She looked appalled and said, "Honey, it's okay. I'll be gentle." I just said no thanks again and went on with the gathering. My cousin announced that Kathy's happy to cut hair for us for a discounted rate and that we need to support one another. Kathy just looked at me and smiled knowingly. I was annoyed, but just ignored it until like a week later, my cousin texted me to ask if I was interested in using Kathy's services and that she had some openings this weekend. I said no thanks. He pushed the issue saying, "Come on, support a family member who has had a rough year with the shutdowns." I just responded, "It's out of my budget." He responded with, "Wow, okay, I guess it's too much to ask you to support us." I wrote back, "I have $15 to last me until my next paycheck. Are you going to support me?" And then waited 10 seconds and sent, "Didn't think so." Mom called me later and said that Kathy was just trying to get me to break out of a rut and was trying to be helpful, and that getting my hair done in a new way might be empowering for me. Then she said that maybe I can adjust my budget and drop a few things to make room to support someone in the family going through a hard time. I asked her bluntly why no one in the family has ever pushed everyone around to help me, and she just got quiet and said, "Oh, sweetie," and hung up. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or pretty much everyone else? Please let us know.
There's no reason on earth they should be pressuring you like this.
Workplace gets robbed for thousands of pounds of stock after new boss tells me I'm not the supervisor and I must comply with my contract. Bit of background to this. So around 10 years ago, I worked for a small independent construction supply store. We sold various things from measuring tapes to power drills, plumbing fittings to sheet timber, and paint to roof tiles. I had been there for 3 years at this point and got on well with the whole team. There were around 12 employees in total, and everyone helped everyone. The atmosphere was always happy and cheerful. The boss, let's call him Jeff, was a star. I loved him. He was laid back as heck, and we had a lot of mutual interests, sports teams, bands, movies, etc. He would bring in stacks of donuts every Friday for the team. Jeff was just the best boss ever. We had this supervisor, Lynn, who had been with the company a good while. Lynn would come in early and open up in the morning before anyone else arrived and would stay back at night to lock up and close the gates. When Lynn left the company to move to his wife's home country about 2 years into my being there, I agreed with Jeff that I would take over from Lynn for regards to opening in the morning and closing at night. The verbal agreement with Jeff and HR/payroll was that I was not promoted as supervisor. I was happy with that as I didn't want the extra hassle. Plus, the soup had to work every third Saturday, where I didn't. Jeff took on the extra duties that went with the role, but I was to be paid an extra 2 hours per day for the added duties in the morning and at night. Things were normal for a good while, until Jeff went on long-term sick leave. He was a huge loss in and around the place, and naturally, we were all worried about him. I visited him regularly while he was absent and kept him up to date with the goings-on and gossip. In the meantime, the firm hired a temporary replacement manager, Rick the Jerk, to fill in for Jeff. This guy was a complete jerk, of the highest order. No one liked him. He was smug and arrogant. He would say crude things to us and had this top dog, tough guy attitude. Mess with me at your peril kind of guy. It was to the point where the donuts on a Friday were ordered to be stopped. Signs up, the lot. With the extra OT money, I had taken over the buying of the Friday donuts as to keep morale high. But no, it had to stop. Soon enough, Rick was assessing the timesheets and noticed my daily 2 hours overtime claim. He called me in to speak about it, and I informed him that as per the agreement with Jeff and HR/payroll, he asked if I had it in writing, and I said no. It was a verbal agreement that people from HR/payroll would back me up on. Rick was his typical arrogant, smarty self and told me, "I don't give a hoot what you have agreed. It ain't in writing, so you ain't getting the OT. I know it doesn't take 2 hours per day to lock and unlock a door or two. I have good reason to write you up for falsifying timesheets for this. It stops now. You work your stated hours, and you do only the stated duties as per your contract." Thing is, the silly jerk confirmed what he said to me by way of an email, just so I had it in writing, so I was perfectly clear as to what my place in the company was. Fine by me, Rick. That evening, I hung the shop keys in the key cabinet and went to wash up. I wasn't the last out, but I left at 5:05, instead of my usual 5:45 or thereabouts. I walked out while all the lights were left on, the doors were unlocked, and the gates were left open. Even the roller shutter door in the warehouse was left half open. The next morning, I arrived a little after 7:15 instead of my usual 6:30. Some colleagues had already turned up by this point. The place had been done over good style. All the power tools were gone. Loads of wood stock gone. Pipes all gone. Paint all gone. It had been ransacked good and proper. An estimated 30,000 to 40,000 pounds of stock was gone. And as the store was now a crime scene, we were all sent home until further notice. We all had to give statements to the police, and a few days later, I was called into a meeting with HR and Rick the Jerk. I was well aware of what was coming and was well prepared. He went to town on me. He accused me of being in on it as I was the only key holder. I wasn't, and that I was facing years in prison. I sat in silence as he fired me 6 times in that meeting. Dereliction of duties. Breach of a verbal contract. Apparently that's a thing. The lot. He was coming after me like wildfire because I had failed to ensure that the building was secured, as was the ongoing agreement put in place by my previous boss. After what seemed like forever having this irate lunatic scream at me, I asked HR if I could log into my emails on her computer. Surprisingly, Sarah agreed. Imagine the absolute crap-eating grin as I pulled up the 3-day-old email from Rick, reminding me of our conversation and confirming that I was to stick to the duties and times as stated in my contract, and smugly and innocently told Sarah, "I just did what my boss told me to do." And the best part was the sheer horror on Rick's face when I pulled out 5 printouts of that email and handed them to him and said, "I have more of these at home just in case you feel like destroying these ones and removing emails from the system. Now, is there anything else? Can I get back to work or am I still fired?" Rick resigned that day. Update. Wow, so much activity on this post. For all those who gave me awards, thank you so much, you magnificent people. One comment in particular to address, where someone said I purposefully left the building vulnerable to thieves. I did not. I had no idea the building was going to be left open. I left in good spirits as I was on my way to a football game, soccer, that evening, and was happy that I would be able to leave earlier and would be able to park closer to the stadium. It's the simple things, eh? I complied with a direct verbal and written order from my supervisor. As we officially didn't have a supervisor after Lynn left, I took on the opening and closing duties as agreed with Jeff. I was told to stop this by Rick, which I did. On the evening in question, I was not the last one to leave, and the others who left after me assumed I was still inside somewhere, as I was always last out prior to this happening. They had no reason to think I wasn't going to be locking up as usual. I didn't ask Rick who would be locking up at night from now on because, well, he wasn't a guy with whom I wanted to spend any more time or converse with any more than was absolutely necessary. I thought he would have done it and claimed the extra 2 hours a day of OT for himself. He was that kind of guy. He failed to put in place any directive to anyone in terms of locking up at night. The incident was, in my opinion, entirely his fault. As for the person/people who suggested Rick could have been in on it, the police tracked down who was responsible, and after a few days, there were no connections discovered to anyone in the company. Yeah, Rick was a jerk, but I honestly don't think he would have done something that could get him jail time. One of the guys arrested and charged admitted it and said it was an opportunist deal. They were driving around and spotted the lights on and no cars in the car park, so took the chance and got away with loads of equipment and materials. Total of 3 people jailed for a couple of years each. The business was located fairly close to one of the shadier parts of town, not the worst area, but certainly not Beverly Hills. Jeff had insurance to cover every possibility, including loss, fire, or theft as a direct result of non-criminal mismanagement, so the only cost to the company was a slightly higher insurance premium for the next couple of years. Jeff returned to work 2 months after the incident, 2011, and 2 of us were promoted into the supervisor and general manager roles. I was the new, official soup, so got a raise as well as the OT for opening and locking up. In 2013, Jeff sold out to a huge national building supplies firm and retired. He now plays golf 4 times a week and keeps good health. I left in 2015 due to the family feel of the business no longer being there, and the atmosphere was just different. Not bad in any way, just different. It wasn't the same and I wanted a new challenge. I still see Jeff from time to time and we remain good friends. Jeff's Construction Supplies is the only place I have ever worked where I kept in touch with colleagues since leaving. I saw Rick in a supermarket grocery store in a neighboring town, maybe 18 months or so ago. We made eye contact and I smiled at him, but he never acknowledged me. I don't know what he's up to these days, nor do I particularly care. Have you ever had a boss that you just absolutely loved? Or what about one that you couldn't stand? Please let us know.
I've got a co-host I can't stand, I know that much.
Self-entitled substitute teacher thinks it's her classroom. Back in 2008, I once had a sub-teacher try to prevent me from leaving class after I had finished my work for the day. Class was an hour, and I had finished my work in 25 minutes. I had been reading up on everything literally up until the class started, so everything was quite literally fresh in my mind, so I soared through it. At the time, our principal had set up something called Productivity Week, which was trying to promote productivity in students by rewarding extra hard studying by allowing them to leave early if they had completed their work for the class early. I got up, walked up to the desk, put my answers into the in tray, walked back to my desk, grabbed my bag silently, and started to walk out the door. The teacher stops me and says,
"Where are you going?"
Me, to the library to read up for the next class.
"No, you're not. Class isn't over yet. Sit down."
Me, yes I am. We're allowed to leave early if we finish our work before the end of class. It's part of Productivity Week. Me, points to the giant banner over the desk that explains it all. Sub,
"This is my classroom, and I don't believe in that. Sit down quietly until the end of class."
Me, starts laughing and walks out. Sub tried to reprimand me and have me sign a thing that pretty much said I would have to stick to a pre-approved plan to change my attitude and behavior. They were called BCP, Behavioral Contingency Plan, and were very common at my school. I picked it up, walked out again, and straight to the principal's office with her in tow, to the front desk, and asked the lady if I could speak with the principal. Very politely, might I add, and she said she'd buzz him out. Principal comes out from his office. Me,
Hello, sir. Could I get your opinion on this BCP? Principal. Scarmex, what's this about?
Sub. Scarmex walked out of my class when we weren't even halfway through the class hour.
Me. After I had finished my work. To Principal. This is still productivity week, isn't it? Principal. Yes, of course it is. Sub, I told you about this when you came in this morning.
I don't care. It's my classroom, and I don't want that hogwash making my students think they can leave whenever they like.
Principal. Sub, that's enough. I don't care if you don't agree with it. This is what's happening, and it's not your classroom. It's the regular teachers. We'll continue this in my office. To me. Scarmex, go to lunch. Me. Yes, sir. Bye. I don't know what happened after that, but I never saw her again in the remaining 2 years I was there. Take my tips and pay me below minimum wage? See what happens. So this all happened years ago when I was still in college. I worked for a delivery joint. The company seemed super cool because they provided vehicles instead of forcing you to beat down your own car. Huge perk, right? Well, in this case, no. The owner of the company used this as justification to take a percentage of the driver's tips. Often this would result in an employee making below minimum wage. If you made below minimum wage, you would have to come and pick up your check in person and sign a document attesting that you did make minimum wage due to undocumented cash tips or some such nonsense. Now this was a problem for 2 reasons. Number 1, in the state I was in, employee tips belong to the employee unless part of an employee tip pooling agreement. This was plain as day on the Department of Labor website, so that 20% gouge was already crossing a line. Number 2, you cannot just hand wave and or force employees to say they made above minimum wage. So pretty shady stuff, right? Now, most people would see this situation and run for the hills, which probably explained the delivery driver turnover being so high. I, on the other hand, saw the potential. See, I'm pretty well versed in labor law and decided that I was gonna ride it out. I wanted to see how long they would keep this up. Here and there, I would make comments to the managers about the legality of their practices and was often told, "Our lawyers said it's okay, so it's okay." Would love to meet these lawyers one day. So I patiently waited for a year, documenting every red cent they took from me and encouraging the other drivers to do so. Every new driver that came through that door got a little powwow with me, and I would give them the skinny. Unfortunately, my plan must have leaked, because sooner than later, the joint decided to fire me after making up 3 bogus infractions. If you're interested in those, ask and I'll explain in an edit. This wasn't a problem though, as my plan was already in action. See, in this state, unpaid wages collect interest. So, what was $20 to $40 a night, 5 nights a week, over 1 year, quickly became a decent sum. So I began collecting the names of current and previous employees whom had been done over by the company and collected their documented data, then sent it off to the Department of Labor. At the end of the day, it took a couple of months, but the company was eventually required to pay a decent chunk of change to all parties and a pretty hefty fine on top. Overall, I believe it came out to be a little under $100,000. I wasn't done though. See, those shady little documents they had us sign, claiming that we made over minimum wage, affected how the company was reporting its payroll tax. The IRS eventually came in and hit them for a ton of back taxes, and I received a small portion of the settlement. The IRS used to pay people who tipped them off. Don't know if they still do. Finally, I was increasingly aware of the companies under the table agreement with their health inspector, which I decided to go ahead and tip off to the health department. This resulted in even more fines and as a temporary closure for the joint. Altogether, it ended up costing this dumb little delivery joint a ton of money just to stay open, all because they wanted 20% of the driver's tips. The moral here is this: know your labor laws. It's jerks like these whom profit off the ignorance or fear of a workforce. The more you know about your rights, the less idiots like these will be able to survive in the wild. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Edit. I wanted to address something I saw in the comments quite a bit. If you're in a situation that does not seem right, document everything. Keep a little black notebook and write down everything. The most important thing you can do to protect yourself from nonsense in the workplace is document, document, document. If you are ever in question of something, be it disability rights at work or earnings, you can always contact your state EEOC branch or DOL branch. They will gladly help you figure out what is and isn't proper. Don't be a person who gets taken advantage of by bad employers,
only by fighting back will they ever learn their lesson. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my nieces and nephews out to fun places anymore because my sister won't help pay the bill? My little sister has 6 kids who are 10, 7, 6, 6, 4, and 2, who I love and babysit when I can. I'm child-free, and my husband and I have a decent amount of fun money saved for us to spend on whatever we want, and I'd use mine sometimes to take them fun places. I still take them all out somewhere at least 2 to 3 times a month. Now, when it was just the oldest, I'd take him for a day to give my sister and brother-in-law a break. I'd take him to museums, fairs, play places, Chuck E. Cheese, amusement parks, etc. With just one kid, it was pretty easy to do. Then the second oldest came along, and I was still able to swing it. But with the addition of the twins, it became harder to afford. Not to mention, watching 4 kids is way harder than watching one. By the time the 4-year-old came around, I couldn't afford to take them all to the same places anymore. It cost too much. So I started taking them cheaper/free places, like the park, free kids days at the museum, the mall, swimming at my house, etc. Now with a 2-year-old, I've totally stopped taking them anywhere that cost more than a couple dollars each. But last week, when I was dropping the kids off at my sister's place, the oldest asked if we could go to the fair next month. I didn't think I'd be able to afford that, but didn't want to outright say no, so I told them I wasn't sure, but we'd see. After the kids ran off, my sister asked why I wasn't sure about the fair, and I told her I didn't think I'd be able to afford tickets and food for 7 people. She said it couldn't cost that much, so I told her that each ticket was about $10 the last time we had gone, and that wasn't counting the money spent on food. I said I'd be happy to take them all to the fair if she paid for at least the tickets. She went off saying that she and brother-in-law didn't have that kind of money, how they had 8 mouths to feed and clothes to buy, and she couldn't waste money on the fair. I asked why she thought I was made of money, and she said I had more money than them, and it's not like I have 6 kids to care for. I told her I loved taking them out, but if she couldn't help with paying for the expensive places, then the kids would have to be content with going to the park or swimming at my house. Sister said I'm a huge jerk, and when I told our parents, they said I was sort of a jerk since I only take them out a couple times a month instead of caring for them 24/7 like my sister. So now I don't know. Hubs says I'm not the jerk, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could swing taking them all to the fair, but it's just so expensive. Am I the jerk for asking for help paying? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
You're already babysitting 6 kids for free. If sister can't afford things for her kids, maybe she should stop having so many.
We deliver, but not for the supermarket. I work as a delivery driver for a store that sells plumbing supplies, bathroom supplies, and tiles. Our usual attire, for the delivery guys at least, is jeans and a blue shirt with a store logo on the left. If it's cold, we wear dark blue jackets with the store name on the back. We drive dark blue minivans with the name of the business on the side. Our boss is a really cool guy that likes to help other people. At least once a month, he will place a big order of food at a local supermarket and bring it to the local food bank. Usually, one of the delivery guys would go by the supermarket, pick the order up, and deliver it at the food bank. A couple of days ago, it was my turn to do the pickup, as the supermarket was on my route back to the city. There I was in the parking lot, playing Tetris with the boxes and bags of stuff my boss had ordered, and waiting on at least 2 more carts full of stuff, when I notice a woman pushing a cart overflowing with bags towards me. I know she's not a store employee because A, one employee is responsible for one delivery, meaning the person that starts the process has to finish it, and B, the employees wear black pants and orange shirts. She stops right next to the cart I'm unloading and waits. I continue to unload my cart and can see she's getting impatient. As I grab the last bag, she speaks.
Finally.
I look at her, admittedly kind of confused.
I want a delivery,
she says. Are you waiting for tiles or toilets? I ask, checking my mental list for a delivery we forgot.
No, and if you continue to be like this, there will be no tip. I want this delivered,
pointing dismissively at her cart. Sorry, madam, I can't do that, I reply.
What?
She shouts.
You decline a client? I will have a word with your supervisor then.
I can give you his number, but I don't think he will let me deliver your groceries either, I said. All this time, she's getting angrier and ready to unleash a tirade when 2 things happen. 1, a van from the supermarket passes by, turning around the corner. 2, the guy in charge of my order comes back with another cart. He sees us and asks what's happening. She goes off how this unhelpful employee doesn't want to deliver her groceries. He looks at me, looks at the van, and then at her. Madam, this guy doesn't work here. First, he isn't wearing our uniform. Second, our vans, as you just saw, are white with orange letters. 3. If you haven't placed an online order, you have to go next to the help desk to arrange a delivery. She stood there, looking at him for a couple of seconds, and then huffing and puffing, took her cart and left. The guy just shook his head and went to get the other cart. You don't want me to organize our documents? Cool, I won't do it then. I used to work as a legal assistant in a big electric energy company. They're owners of a lot of wind energy plants here in my country, and to say that they're a strong competitor in this market is an understatement at best. We initially used Microsoft SharePoint as a server for all of our functional systems and to save all of our documents, but the CEO decided to change it to the Box system. The difference between them was so huge that it was shocking. I was usually in charge of saving all of our documents and data in the system, so when the change was announced, I expected orders coming from the legal counselor, the final boss of my department, obviously, to give me that direct order. During a team call via Teams, she started to talk about Box and how we must organize our stuff. Since a big part of them were the company's contracts, we needed everything in check. As ridiculous as this sounds, the legal department wasn't liked by at least 5 other departments, and truth being told, our document server was a mess. Each person had their own way to save stuff and nothing made sense. Even the legal counselor said it herself. Our server looked like some kid's room when they have a lot of fun and they don't tidy it up. Of course, this was extremely bad. As he mentioned the organization of the system, I immediately proposed to be the one to create a routine for us to save stuff, such as the archive naming, folder distribution, etc. The paralegal, she was great, also offered to help me since the workload was immense. We practically would start from scratch and do our best without a basis. My direct boss, one of the legal analysts, immediately interrupted us and said she was going to do it. I told her she wouldn't have enough time since she's mostly busy analyzing contracts and other incidents. She said for me not to worry because I also had a truckload of things to do and that I wouldn't do a great job anyway. Really? Fine, I won't do it then. Fast forward to a month, we were entering the archive transferring phase of the project. Every single department in the company must have their server organized because they would do a direct transfer without any sort of checking. Guess what? Our server was still a mess. And to top it all off, the VP came towards the legal counselor and ordered her to have everything organized in 48 hours. Yes, 48 hours to organize a completely complicated and messy server. In an emergency team call, she questioned my boss why nothing had been done regarding the server. My boss, trying to keep her own slate clean, threw me under the bus, saying that she shifted the responsibility to me. Luckily, the paralegal backed me up and saved me. She reminded us of the call where my boss strictly told me to not do anything since I wouldn't do a good job. Despite the hassle, the counselor told me to stop everything I was previously doing and just organize our system. And so I did. I cleaned up the server in the allotted time, had to reorganize everything on my own, didn't eat, sleep, just to make sure everything was in check. When the day came, the VP checked on us again and saw what I did. She said for the counselor to not let things go out this way again, and that I had done a miracle and a half for my department. Boy, what a day. Am I the jerk for firing an employee for not complying with my views? Okay, the title sounds horrible, and I really don't know how else to put it, so I'll leave it like that. But hear me out. I own a medium-sized company in my country, roughly 180 employees. I'll keep it vague, so the chance of recognition is kept to a minimum. Currently, most of our employees are working in home office, and we've been having an increase in productivity, which is awesome. Regardless, at the start of 2021, we needed more people to work with us in our IT department. I put in a request of HR to make an opening and post it to the usual channels. It's been 3 months and we still haven't hired anyone. That was very strange since I actually believe our company would be an attractive place for people to work. Regardless, I scheduled a meeting with the head of HR to discuss what was happening and what we could do to improve the situation. He said they had a few applicants, but no one filled the requirements. Now, I must explain that this is an entry-level position. It's not something that should have a lot of requirements. To be honest, it shouldn't have a requirement at all. We already have an IT department established. We just needed more personnel. I asked to take a look at the opening. I'm not someone with a lot of knowledge in IT, but the requirements posted for an entry-level job were out of this world. It actually said we required 3 years of experience. I was horrified and questioned them the second I saw that. There were a lot of excuses of the likes, "It's what the market asks." Well, it didn't end well, and I immediately told them to take that offering off. I already was pretty upset and went on our server to check the records of HR behavior, especially with the openings they have posted. Most of them, for all areas, had been outrageous. I was barely holding my own anger at the sight of that. I immediately went to talk to the HR department head again, and they actually argued with me that they were doing what was best for the company. I never asked them to do that. I asked them to hire good people who were looking to learn. Experience shouldn't be a requirement for an entry-level position or internship. After a lot of arguing, I ended up firing them, all within the terms of their contract, and it's being handled by our lawyers. Regardless, this person has been bad-mouthing me and my company through the four corners of the city. Not only that, even to some of my current workers. Jerk was the least of the names I have been called. Now, I don't think I'm in the wrong, but I might have overreacted in my anger, especially since we're in a very delicate situation and finding a job is very hard currently. So I thought I would ask for peace of mind at least. Am I the jerk? Karen has lived in my house rent-free for 1.5 years. My friend broke up with her longtime boyfriend who she lived with. She had trouble finding a place to live. I have a second home. No, I'm not rich. I'm just in a fortunate situation that I stay at when I'm working and offered to let her live with my kids and I in our second home for a while until she figured out what she wanted to do and save some money up. Because I had the space, she got her own room. That was more than 1.5 years ago. For the first 6 months, we all lived together, and she was a considerate house guest. I did not ask her to pay rent or contribute to utilities. She did help pay for groceries, however, and occasionally helped me with my kids. Then, in March 2020, we all know what happened, and I began working from home. My kids and I moved back to our other home to be with my husband, and because we have more land to roam around. My friend has continued to live in our second home rent-free. Until January, we also paid all of the utilities, though we weren't using them. Since January, she has contributed a total of $500 toward utilities. Monthly cost is somewhere in the range of $300 to $550. Well, my daughter is going back into hybrid mode for school, so we need to go back to the second house. My friend regularly hosts her horrible boyfriend and his kids at my home, which I've asked her not to do. She has not altered her behavior as a result of the situation that started in March of 2020, and she has no intention of getting inoculated. My youngest has a condition that makes him particularly vulnerable to illness. I am unwilling to place my family, especially my kids, at unnecessary risk by allowing her to live with us, so I explained my reasons and asked her to move out. I gave her 1.5 months notice and told her that, if necessary, she could have another month. Now she's upset. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Karen? Please let us know.
She's mooched off you long enough. Get ready to evict her.
Am I the jerk for telling my mom, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit? I, female 24, live with my parents with my kid. I pay my own way in terms of rent and bills, support my kid, work full-time. They do not provide for me or my little family. On to the issue. My mom expects dinner to be ready when she gets home. My dad is indifferent. He'll ask if I've planned anything, and if I haven't, he will pick something up on his way. The other night I made tilapia, and the conversation went like this. Mom,
What's for dinner?
me, tilapia, tater tots, and corn.
I don't like fish.
Me, okay, I'm sorry. I thought tilapia was one you'd like.
No, I don't like fish. I've never liked fish.
Me, okay, noted.
So, what are you gonna do?
Me, nothing. I don't make separate meals for everybody's tastes. At this point, my kid is paying attention, and I struggle getting kiddo to eat what I make. I didn't see this going somewhere that would be helpful. Mom,
Wow, seriously?
me, when we were kids, you did not cater to everybody's taste. You could make something else if you don't want fish.
I worked all day.
So did I. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. You are welcome to make a PB&J if you don't like what's served. This is the rule for my kid. Don't like what's being served? Try a bite. Still not a fan? Feel free to make a quick PB&J and join me at the table. Mom,
How dare you? Don't treat me like a child.
me, then stop acting like one. At this point, I left and went to the table to eat with my kid. She tried to follow me and was stopped by my dad. I didn't think I did anything wrong, but she glares at me every time I walk through the house and refuses to talk to me. My dad said he doesn't think I was wrong, but wants me to apologize to keep the peace. I've since stopped making dinner for anybody except my kid, which honestly seems to upset her even more. Am I the jerk? Edit, since it came up a lot. This is not my parents' house. We rent the home 50-50, and I'm on the lease with my father. We both have good reason for the arrangement. My only obligation moving together with them was that I take care of my responsibilities, such as my kids. Making dinner for them every night was not a condition of the agreement. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her mom? Please let us know.
I think OP's mom needs to be put in a timeout.
Teacher claims I faked an injury, so my mom ruins her career. I, 15, female, have had a long and elaborate history with injuries, especially breaking my arm. Starting from literally the day I was born, my health has been complicated. I have a few conditions, but none serious enough to impact my daily life as I know it. I have a very weak immune system and somewhat easy to break bones. On top of that, I am the definition of clumsy, and I'm also a huge idiot who gets herself into dangerous situations for fun. My mom, 40, female, has obviously known me from birth and knows just the extent of my weird bad luck and health issues. I've broken my arms a collective 13 times over my entire life, and almost every time I got injured or sick, it seems somebody had something to say about it. I don't know why, but teachers just love to say that students that get hurt often are attention-seeking fakers, and a lot of relationships with authority figures have been harmful because of this. Every time it's the same. For some reason, a teacher doesn't believe me. They call me a liar in front of everyone. I get bullied for a while, and then I have to try and prove that I'm not faking. I could post so many stories about teachers doing this, but this is a story about the time my mom actually managed to get revenge. This all took place around 7th grade. I was 12 at the time, and I had broken my wrist by climbing on top of something I wasn't supposed to and then falling off like an idiot. My wrist was in a Velcro cast since I'm very allergic to the regular cast material, as they figured out through many cases of trial and error. My teacher, let's call her Mrs. Tablet, since this took place while we were learning about Egyptian tablets. She taught history, and our personalities clashed a bit. I'm more of a creative, adventurous, free thinker type, and she was very conservative, by the book and proper. We hadn't had any real issues before this, but we just didn't mesh well. She was absent one day, and we had a sub in. I knew the sub as one of my teacher's friends and one of my bully's mom. I didn't like her, but I was still respectful in class and just tried to get my work done. She got me in trouble for doodling on my paper once or twice, but other than that, everything was fine, or so I thought. The next day, I went into class like usual. We were working on an assignment about Egypt and their tablets, and when Mrs. Tablet called me over to her desk, I went over, thinking she'd just get onto me for drawing on the back of my homework or something, only to get bombarded with a bunch of really weird questions. The interaction went something like this. Teacher:
So, Fire, do you know why I've called you up here?
I know Fire isn't my Reddit name, but it's my in-real-life nickname, so I'm using it here. No, ma'am, I can't say that I do.
How long have you had that cast?
Me: about a week now. Why?
Do you really need that cast?
Yes. Teacher:
Well, the substitute told me she saw you take it off.
Me: it's a cast. I can't take it off. It would hurt.
So, if I asked the class, they'd say you need the cast?
Me: yes.
And if I called your parents right now, they'd say the same thing?
Yes, they were the ones that took me to the hospital. And she did this in front of the whole class. I was eventually dismissed, and people looked at me weird for the rest of the class. As I later learned, apparently the substitute had told Mrs. Tablet that I'd taken off my cast as soon as I left class. I didn't, and that I threw it in my locker like, ha ha ha, I'm getting away with doing less work. So basically, she pretended I was a bad guy in a crappy high school movie. I don't know why she said this, but it had my teacher convinced that I was a liar and a fake. I technically could remove my cast since it was Velcro, but that would have been extremely painful, and it's not like I could just walk around without it. I wasn't going to make a big deal about it at the time, but it turns out she was serious about calling my parents, but she made the mistake of calling my mom. Now, me and my mother don't have a perfect relationship. She has anger issues, so we don't always get along. But she loves me very much and doesn't let people like this mess with me if she can stop it. According to my mom, Mrs. Tablet called her all upset and said things like,
Apparently your daughter is wearing a cast. Did you know that? And, well, we all know how dramatic teenagers can be, especially unique kids like her.
She apparently even threatened to have me suspended before my mom stopped her and tore her to shreds for talking about her kid like that. I don't think I'm allowed to repeat what was said, but by the end, Mrs. Tablet had to retreat with her tail tucked. She started being even more cold to me after that day and started giving me unfair detentions for not sitting still and doodling on the side of my worksheets. Even then, outside of the school, we went to the same art studio sometimes. Weird that someone who hates art so much likes to paint, and poisoned the art director against me and got me put into a lower class. When my mom found out about this, she started the real revenge. My mom has never been a PTA mom. She honestly can't stand most of the PTA members, and their kids are chosen as favorites at my school, and they use this power to bully others, including me and my friends. My mom is, however, friends with a very lovely woman on the county school board, which has more power than the PTA. She told her friend everything that had happened and supplied all the doctor's notes needed to prove I needed the cast. Her friend managed to convince the rest of the board that Mrs. Tablet was discriminating against an impaired student, given her comments about me being slower at work and just wearing the cast to slack off, along with detentions related to me not sitting still when she knew I had nervous movements and slight ADHD. At the art studio, my mother pulled me from the classes. I took it upon myself to inform the fellow kids about why, and rumors spread quickly. Soon enough, kids were getting pulled left and right, and my art teacher was pulling at strings to try and get the situation under control. I actually think the studio went into temporary closure before reopening again. She was suspended for a week to go under investigation, and it turns out she treated a lot of the unique, as she put it, students in a similar way. She was verbally reprimanded by 2 different departments, and instead of getting her standard raise over the next 3 years, she'll only get half of that. Not only that, but she had to retake a course on how to properly treat students, and if she's ever caught to cross this line again, she'll lose tenure. She'll just be getting her bonus back at the start of next school year, and I'd just like to say that I hope she learned her lesson. Have you ever had a teacher treat you unfairly? If so, what did they do? Please let us know.
I've got a co-host who treats me unfairly, I know that much.
This is false advertisement. This story spans over a week. It ended today. We've got Mum, we've got Son, we've got Clipper, me. So, last Monday I was working and a lady and her son came in with a bag of our store. They approach me and tell me how they went to our discount store within the major city and bought a suit jacket. The tag labels it as a tuxedo jacket, but that isn't that important. They say that they would like to exchange the jacket they have for a bigger jacket. After sizing up the new jacket on the son, we take it over to the counter and start to scan the jacket for the exchange. And I see that they have bought this at a discounted price, as we no longer stock that jacket anymore and haven't for at least 2 seasons now. Because the jackets are 2 different prices, I let them know of the situation. Me. So the jacket you want to exchange is coming under a discounted price of $50. If I'm going to exchange the jacket, you will have to pay the difference because I can't do a straightaway swap for an older and a discounted product. Mom.
That's fine. How much does it come to?
Me. So the difference you would have to pay is still $110, as the price of the jacket you want to exchange is $40. She gasps.
That is too much. Is there anything you can do?
Me. If you can bring the pants you bought and the docket. They didn't have the docket for the exchange at the time, as they wanted to see what they could exchange it for. By the end of the week, I can lower the cost of the exchange down to $40. For context, we had a deal last week where if you buy the jacket, you get the pants with it for $150 instead of the full $200. If they exchanged both their suit pants and the jacket, they would only need to pay $40 instead of $110, and that would give them both the jacket and the pants for the same price as the jacket by itself outside the deal. Mom.
Okay, that sounds good. We will come back either tomorrow or the day after.
Me. Too easy. I will put it aside for you so it's an easy exchange. They both leave the store, and I put the things aside along with a note stating their name, number, and what they're doing with it. A couple of days pass, and it's now Friday. They've not come in, so I take the suit from out of the back and put it back, as it has been more than the time I am allowed to keep something aside, especially in a busy sale based on said suits. Cut to today, a week and a half after they originally came in. Since the deals have changed and we no longer have sales on suits and they have gone back to full price. Me. Hello again. Mom.
Hello again. we came to exchange the suit and pants for the full suit. Me,
Of course, let me go get the suits and get you the things you were after. I go, and luckily find that the suit and pants haven't been bought since I put them back. They are the only ones in those sizes left in the entire state. I begin to start the exchange and remember that the sales have changed, and now for the exchange, they have to pay $40 if they exchange their jacket and pants for just the jacket without the pants. If they were to get the pants with the new jacket, they would need to pay $90 now. Like mentioned above, the full jacket and pants are back at the full price of $200. Me. So, because the deal we had with our suits has now finished, I can only give you the jacket for $150 without the pants, as adding the pants takes it up to $200. This means if you exchange both your pants and jacket, you have to pay $40 for the jacket, or $90 for both the new jacket and pants. Mom and the son are confused.
last time you said you could do it for $40. This is false advertising.
Me. I assure you it isn't. Our sale last week was a discount on full-price suits, and at the time, I could have done the exchange with you, and you would have only had to pay $40. But because they have gone up to full price again, you have to pay more now. You said you would be in the following day or two, which is why I said it would come to $40. The sale has ended, and this week we have a new sale on, which is why the price went back up. Mom and son clearly not understanding how sales work and ignoring what I said.
You still said it would be $40, so this is false advertising.
Me. Again, it can't be, because we're no longer doing any discounted sales on the suits, so the price has gone up. I'm truly sorry, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Well, can we speak to your manager?
Me. My manager has gone home, but I can call them and ask them how we go about this. I knew how this would go. I would either need to give them a refund in full, or they would have to shell out the money. We couldn't discount a product down to a price it is no longer advertised at, as it was only for a weekly sale. I ring my manager and they confirm my thinking. Me. So I just got off the phone with my manager, and they said that because we no longer do the suit discount, you either have to pay the increased remaining amount after you exchange your suit, or I can give you a full refund.
Yes, we'll go with the refund.
Me. Did you want that in store credit or just straight back on your card?
Back on my card.
So I put through the refund. They walk out, and I've now been continuing with my shift. I don't understand what's so difficult about weekly flash sales and understanding that when the price goes back to full, we cannot sell them at their sale prices as they're no longer on sale. This is my first time ever having an experience like this in retail, and I've been in it for months, so it set me aback a bit. After all my pleasant experiences in retail, I never expected that one of those classic retail moments would or could be so intense and stressful when you're talking to a brick wall. Am I the jerk for wanting to pay for my niece's college against my fiance's wishes? Both my brother and his ex-girlfriend are total deadbeat parents to my niece, and they've never been in the picture. They dumped her on my mom the second she was born, so she practically raised my niece since she was a baby. I started helping out more after my dad passed, not my niece's grandpa, since my brother and I had different dads, and was left with a huge sum of inheritance. I put some of it aside and decided that would be her college fund in the future. My niece is bright, and she has a lot of goals career-wise. She's about to become a senior in high school this year, so next year will be college. My fiance is 4 months pregnant, and something that came up recently was my niece's college fund. I was always upfront about my involvement in my niece's life, and I do provide financial support because I have the means to do it, and I know my mom needs the help every now and then. She feels that with a baby on the way, that fund should be used for our future expenses and our own kids' college instead. My fiance isn't happy that I still want to use this money for my niece to go to college, and we've had a couple of fights about it. 1. I promised my niece her college expenses would be taken care of as long as she maintained good grades, which she has. 2. My fiance and I both make good money right now, enough to start up a new college fund and to get by with all the added child expenses. We literally looked at our finances to make sure we were financially ready before trying to have a baby. 3. This money has been set aside long before my fiance was even in the picture. But she says this lockdown has shown that there could be a time in the future where we won't be financially stable, and why risk our kids' well-being when there's that money for us to save now? I don't see it that way, and don't feel it's fair to my niece when I promised her this. I'm being accused of not caring about our future child and preferring my niece over them, and being made into the bad guy for not wanting to keep that money. So I'd like to know what others think. Am I being a jerk for wanting to use this money for what I always intended instead of saving it for my kid? Edit. I know it's late since I've posted this, But I'd like to add that this is out of character for my fiance because she's done a lot to help my niece too. This is mostly a financial anxiety for her given the lockdown and that there could be a time where we are both unemployed. I'm taking steps to try to ease that anxiety so that we're both more secure about the well-being of our kid in the future. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his fiance? Please let us know. The end to a free decade of Netflix. Between 8 and 10 years ago, I received an email welcoming me to Netflix. That was a bit concerning since I hadn't signed up, so I contacted the company. They told me someone must have accidentally used my email when they created an account. Our last names were the same and our first initial. I said, "Oh, no problem. You must have additional contact information for them besides my email. Could you please remove my email from the account and let them know so that they can fix it?" Well, immediately, that was a big problem for Netflix. And well, no, they couldn't remove the email because it was the only one they had for the account. And how did they even know that it was mine? I said, "Give me your email address and start talking. I will email you the words as they come out of your mouth." That wasn't good enough for proof somehow. More likely, I was in the other person's Gmail account asking to not have Netflix. What they finally ended up doing was changing the account password so that when the customer went to log back in, they wouldn't be able to and would need to do a password reset by calling Netflix, and then they could confirm the email address. I kept getting Netflix emails, so that didn't work. I called again and again. It didn't work. I changed the password several times myself because I could use the forgot password function and get an email to reset it. That didn't work. I don't know how they kept getting the new password without updating an email address, and I don't really care at this point. For the last 8 to 10 years, I have had Netflix on everything that I own. I've signed in on hotel televisions, used it on my phone, my Xboxes, my kid uses it. I only ever signed in under Family and told him to do the same. The entire history in Family is us. The other logins, Fred, Softy, and Lila, accumulated history. I would occasionally look because curious. Never did a single new show appear in the Family watch history that wasn't because of me. Well, I woke up this morning to an email from Netflix telling me that this email address was no longer associated with that account and if I had any questions, etc. Thank you, Softy. It has been an amazing run, and I'm not sure why you gave me free Netflix for the last decade, but I think you are amazing. Do you know who I am? Worked military law enforcement in a former life. The best part of this, over civilian law enforcement, is that we can usually get your boss's boss, or someone else who will crush you for being a doofus on the phone very quickly. However, we also have spouses that have no rank or authority but act as if they do. It's a busy day on a larger base. I pulled a woman over for running a very red light that was not even close to formerly being yellow. She almost caused a multi-vehicle accident which forced several cars to swerve out of the way. We always had to call up info and wait for a response prior to approaching their car. Sometimes, if the dispatcher was slow or if it was a busy day, you could sit for 5 minutes before getting that response. This always irritated unbearable people even further. I finally walked up to her car after sitting for several minutes as I waited for this information. Me. Hi, I need your license, registration, insurance, and ID card. Need those for base access. Her.
Why did you pull me over? This is harassment.
Me. Ma'am, if you give me those items, I'll be happy to discuss this further. This went on for a few more tries, me asking and her yelling. Finally, she angrily and forcefully handed the documents to me. I already knew where this was going. While I normally didn't entertain this stuff, I was bored, so I figured why not. Her.
Do you know who I am? Who my husband is?
Me. No, ma'am, I don't. Her, with calm sense of victory.
Captain Doofus with so-and-so unit.
Me. Well, I'm very sorry for this. If you want to get him on the phone, we'll clear this up and you'll be on your way. Now, we have this thing called a blotter. It's a report that goes to the commanding general of every negative thing that happened, and he reviews it with those unit commanders. Usually it's a bad day for you if you're on it, all ready for whatever it was, and then because it makes the unit look bad and blah blah blah. Also, comical is the fact that he's just a captain. If you have a pulse, you'll get promoted to that as an officer. Her.
Honey, some cop pulled me over for nothing. He wants to talk to you.
She handed her phone to me, and I gave her back her documents. It was a purple Motorola Razr. I don't know why I remember that specifically, but it stood out. Me. Captain Doofus, this is OP. Your wife ran a red light at the intersection, almost causing an accident. She's about to be apprehended for obstruction. Your vehicle will be towed and your name will end up on the blotter. There is no way she was about to be apprehended for just yelling at me and refusing to hand me these documents for maybe 20 seconds. I wasn't even going to write her a ticket. I didn't like paperwork. Captain Doofus, will you please give my wife the phone back? Her jaw dropped and her eyes already started to water as I gave her the phone back. From a few feet away, with cars passing by on a fairly busy road, I heard him yelling at her. My job was done, and I went back to my car. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that being a social media influencer isn't a real job? I'm a father of two, Sam, 25, male, and Kate, 24, female. Sam is currently working as a business analyst. I'm a single dad, and I've raised both of them since birth. Their mother passed unfortunately when they were young. Kate graduated high school 6 years ago. When Kate was 18, she didn't know what she wanted to do professionally, and I told her that she's free to go into any field she desires. So then she decided that she would become a social media influencer, and when she told me that, I said, okay, as I didn't want to discourage her, and at the time, she was in university pursuing an English degree. Later, she decided to drop out and focus on another career path, and she worked as an HR intern to gain some experience to start an HR career, as she was interested in because I did it. I'm an HR director and have worked in HR for 20 years. She worked as an HR intern for a few months, paid, and then suddenly she decided to quit and work on social media influencing. Now, I'm not going to stop her from pursuing what she wants to do, and I said, sure. So she starts posting on Instagram, and the only followers she has are her 1,000 followers, all from high school. From there, it's been about a few years, and she's still at 1,000 followers. Yesterday night, I'm sitting on the sofa watching TV, and Kate sits next to me, and she tells me, Dad, I'm not getting any followers on Instagram, and nor am I earning any money. Why is this happening? What's going on? What will I do in life? How do TikTok, Instagram celebrities become so successful? What are they doing that I'm not? And then she just puts on a sad face. I tell her, Kate, social media influencer isn't a real job, kiddo. If you want to make actual money, you should work a job. It's quite difficult to earn a living off of social media. What those TikTok and Instagram celebrities did took them years of work and effort to make themselves successful, and to the point they can make a living off of it. What you should have tried to do is work a job, and on the side continue on with the Instagram, TikTok, like a side hustle. And once your side hustle makes more than your actual job, you can make your side hustle your income. Now Kate lives with me under my roof. I pay for her food and basic necessities. I don't have a problem with paying that. She's my kid, and as a father, it's my responsibility to take care of her, regardless of her age, etc. Now, my father, grandfather, and so on all passed during their mid-60s. It runs in the family because all of us have a congenital heart condition. I'm not in my 60s yet, but will be in a few years. And along with the condition, it means that my body weakens with age, and there will be an increase in disability for me and eventually passing on. Kate ended up sobbing, and she went to her room and called her aunt while crying. And then her aunt called me a jerk for telling Kate that social media influencer is not a real job. Her aunt then yelled at me for an hour on the phone and called me a couple of not-so-nice words and said I'm being a bad father. Am I the jerk? Edit. When I wrote, Kate, social media influencer isn't a real job, kiddo, I did not intend to mean that it is not a job and it's bad. I didn't mean that. I implied that it's a difficult profession to actually make a living off of it. I do understand that it's not an easy job/work to do working as a social media influencer. It isn't easy, and for the last few years, she's been ranting and complaining to me about how she's not earning any money from it, which is why I explained to her that it's not a real profession in that sense, as it's a career that isn't that stable. Example, with the app Vine. It was quite popular and people were earning well, but then when Vine wasn't able to sustain numerous stars and influencers, they fell off. And now what? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for what he said to his daughter or not? Please let us know. Repeat the question as many times as you want. My answer isn't changing. Cast. We've got me and we've got the rude dude. Hi, I've never posted before, but I follow this sub and thought some of you might enjoy this. I work in a small chain family restaurant that serves a lot of home-style cooked food. Lately, there's only a hostess on weekend morning shifts. My manager desperately needs to hire multiple front-end staff, but just hasn't gotten around to it. So it gets pretty hectic having to serve and hostess when it gets busy at night. I usually end up serving my section and hostessing for both me and our other waitress. Tonight, Friday, the busiest night of the week, my boss had just myself, 20, and the youngest server, 17. She's actually really amazing at her job, manning the restaurant. We work great together, but both being and looking very young makes rude and entitled people not want to listen to us. As soon as I started my shift at 3 p.m., I covered the whole floor. 12 tables, full capacity, as half are closed off, for an hour until the other server arrived. Then the floor was split, to be clear. First hour was quite busy, but it just got busier and busier after she arrived until we had to start up a wait list. Cue the rude dude. I noticed a new customer at the front as I was bringing out a table's food. Important to note that when he walked through the glass doors, he had passed a lady who was next on the list. As soon as I walked up to him and was in the middle of saying hello, he looked straight ahead at the one dirty table in the joint and said,
I'll take that booth. Go clean it.
Me. I'm sorry, but we're full and actually have a waiting list going. There's one person ahead of you, and it should be around 10 to 15 minutes for a table. Rude dude.
Just give me that table. I'm in a hurry and I have places to be.
Me. That table is actually for that lady behind you and our only available one. But I can add you to the list, and the next available table will be yours. Rude dude points to closed tables.
What about those empty tables? Don't want to sit me there or what?
Me. Those are actually closed for social distancing.
Isn't there tables around the corner in the back there?
They're all full as well. Everything's occupied. Would you like to be added to the list or not? At this point, I'm getting impatient, as I have about a dozen other tasks that would be much more useful than this conversation.
Show me the list.
There's one person ahead of you.
Show me the list.
There is only one person ahead of you. Rude dude, getting increasingly angrier.
Show me the list.
Me. That lady is the only person ahead of you. The next table will be yours.
Give me the list. I want to see how long the wait is myself.
Me. Kind of in shock because this guy's literally trying to snatch the paper right out of my hand. I'm not going to show you the list. It has people's private numbers on it. Rude dude.
What's your name?
I tell him my name.
Well,
introduces himself.
And you're in trouble. I don't mean to be short, but people's time is important and you are wasting it.
He turns to walk out. Me. I know it is, and so are you. I doubt he heard the last part, but really hope he did. Pretty sure he called my head office as soon as he was out of the doors, but I couldn't care less, honestly. I just had an exhausting night, and that was just the cherry on top. I've been fuming hard about it since I got home, so decided I might as well write it down. Also, I'm not necessarily even mad he was rude/left. More the fact that while I was clearly as busy as can be, he wasted multiple minutes of my important time, as he calls it. Also, just thought before anyone asks, no, he could hear perfectly fine. I suppose he just wasn't getting the answer he wanted and believed repeating it would change the answer. Karen gets busted for plagiarizing a piece of artwork in class. I've been doing art in multiple forms since I was really young. I've never been interested in art as a career or a job. It's something I started doing to express myself and to help my anxiety. I've been posting my drawings on Instagram just for fun, and through this, I became friends with a somewhat popular artist. We will call her Dana. By popular, I don't mean millions of followers. I mean she has a little over 25,000 followers. Not an extreme amount, but still a good following. We became rather close through Instagram. Now, Dana is an amazing artist. This girl can make a drawing look like a photo. Now back to the main point. It all happened in art class. We previously had an assignment to do an art piece that shows how the world has changed due to what's going on. When first given the assignment, our art teacher, we will call her Mrs. G, told us that she would pick 5 pieces of work to enter into an art contest being held by the local art center. Anyone interested in being picked should tell her after class. The prize was a $100 gift card to the local Michael's store, which is the best art store around here. Now, I'm perfectly content with my cheap dollar store art supplies. As I said, I don't take my art too seriously, it's just for fun, so I didn't enter. Now comes Wednesday. Mr. G had picked the drawings and they were posted outside of the art room. Now when I looked at one of the winner's drawings, it completely stuck out to me. It was an art piece submitted by a girl who we will call Candy. I knew I had seen that exact piece before. On Dana's page. She had done it about a month back. I even pulled up the post on Dana's page and held them side by side, completely copied. Now here's where I might be the jerk. I ratted her out to Mrs. G, going as far as showing her Dana's Instagram page, namely the piece Candy copied. Now Mrs. G has a rule, no tracing and or copying art. Original pieces only unless the assignment mentioned otherwise. So Mrs. G was not happy. She confronted Candy, who tried denying it at first, but admits she copied it once presented with proof. She also went back and looked at Candy's previous works and saw that she copied most of those as well. Candy was sent to the office and didn't come back for the rest of the day. From what I heard, her punishment was having her piece taken down and being disqualified from the competition, obviously. She was given a failing grade on the assignment, and she was given 3 days out of school suspension. Now, her and her friend are harassing me for turning her in, calling me a rat, saying I shouldn't have butted my nose where it doesn't belong, saying it's not my business. But isn't it my business? Dana is my friend, and Candy was going to enter Dana's hard work into a competition, claiming it was hers. If she had won, the piece would hang in the art center with her name on it. That just doesn't sit well with me. Am I the jerk for ratting on a girl for plagiarizing a piece of artwork in class? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Candy? Please let us know.
Now that's what I call sour candy.
Yes. Entitled Mom wants her kid to be Artist of the Month every month. I work in a small art studio and we run art clubs for kids, usually around an hour at a time, where I am the assistant art teacher. The age range is quite large, though we do have classes for younger kids and older ones separately. In one of the younger classes, there's a girl, probably around 7 or 8, and not to be harsh, but she is one of the brattiest kids I've ever met. She always throws massive tantrums whenever she has to share paint with the other kids, which is necessary because resources are expensive. And she always says she hates her pictures to get attention and throws an even bigger tantrum, crying and shouting the entire lesson. We know she does this for attention because she's a completely different kid around her mother. As soon as the art class is over, she runs out all happy and says, "Look at my beautiful picture, Mummy," or something along those lines. So for context, we have this thing in our classes where each month we pick one kid from one of the groups and ask them to bring in some of their previous artwork so that we can hang them up on our Artist of the Month wall. We give them back when the month is over. One day, after a long lesson of entitled kid throwing tantrums and crying as she always does, her mother picks her up, but this time she actually comes into the studio for a moment. Entitled Mom notices the Artist of the Month wall and upon closer inspection realizes that the artwork on the wall doesn't belong to Entitled Kid. She then turns to Entitled Kid and goes, "Look, darling, have you been the Artist of the Month yet?" Entitled Kid, "No, some of the other kids in the class have though." Entitled Mom turns to me and asks why her daughter hasn't had her work up yet. I explain that every single kid will get a chance and that we try to alternate between the classes to make it fair. With a slightly annoyed tone, she says,
Well, I sure hope entitled kids will be on the wall next month.
I explain again that we've already picked the Artist of the Month for next month because we try to alternate between the classes.
But these other kids' artworks aren't even good. My daughter is the only one with real talent here. She should be the Artist of the Month every month.
Me, well, that just isn't how we do things around here. There are plenty of other kids in the class whose artwork is all unique and who all deserve a chance to be Artist of the Month. Me, either your daughter can wait for her turn or I don't know how else to help you. At this point, Entitled Mom looked very annoyed.
Ugh, doesn't matter. Her artwork is still a lot better than all those other kids.
Me, I'm sure that to you, as a parent, it is. At this point, Entitled Mom just huffed and left with her daughter. Needless to say, they still came back to the next class and didn't say anything else since. Entitled Kid still occasionally throws tantrums, and it's not as bad nowadays. Boss told me to choose between the military or my job, so I quit. I was active duty in the Army for 3 years, and following that, shifted into the reserves for another 3 years. I was moving from one state back to my home state during the transition from active duty and needed a truck scale to weigh the moving truck before returning it, so I could be reimbursed for the move. The Army pays you to move between duty stations and when you ETS from active duty. While looking for a truck scale, I found a place that I thought would have one, but it turned out to be a company that installed and certified scales. The branch manager and I hit it off as I was explaining what I was there for, and he said he would like to interview me for a job. Sweet. I needed something anyway to support my family, and the job sounded pretty exciting. Within a couple of weeks, they had hired me, and I got started learning the ropes and getting the necessary certifications. Things went well, and I became one of the go-to guys when they needed some of the more intricate work done. I had several job sites I would go to on a regular basis where the customers loved me. You might be surprised at all the places where scales are used to measure products and sell things, from labs with tiny scales weighing to the hundredths of a gram to big truck scales installed at job sites to weigh debris from various construction projects. The job was tough physically at times, but I actually really enjoyed traveling all over the state and getting to meet some really awesome people. Fast forward a little over a year after I started at the company. Things had been going really good, and I was going to school in the evenings to get some education and further my career. Now, sometimes the job required all hands on deck on the weekends for some of the bigger jobs, like truck scale installs at customer sites for one reason or another. Normally, this was fine, and there had never been any issue for me working the weekend, unless I had drill with my reserve unit. But the company was fine with that as long as I got the needed paperwork from my unit listing the dates I would be drilling. This all changed at the end of May, after I had been at the company for over a year. I had requested time off over the Memorial Day holiday weekend to take my wife to Myrtle Beach as a late honeymoon. The weekend before that I had drill, and so was also unavailable for work. The Thursday before those back-to-back weekends, which had been understood to be my weekends I would not be available, my boss called me after I had left the shop for my jobs for the day. Boss: "Hey, I need you to tell me which of the next 2 weekends you will be able to work. We have 2 big jobs, and we need everyone available." Me: You know I have drill this weekend, and you already approved me being off next weekend to go out of town." Boss: "Well, I need you at least one of these jobs. So which will you be in for?" Me: "I can't this weekend because drill is mandatory, and if I cancel the hotel that I have booked next weekend, it's going to cost me money in cancellation fees." Boss: "Look, we work in customer service. If you can't be available to work, then maybe you should look for a job not in customer service. Call me back or let me know when you get back to the office which weekend you will be working." This call was at like 8:30 in the morning, and I still had several jobs to do for the day. I called my wife and told her what happened and that I might just quit. She said I should do what I thought was best, and maybe it would be good to be able to focus on school more and try to find something where they were not going to treat me like that. I spent the rest of the day contemplating what to do, and by the time I got back to the office that afternoon, I had made up my mind. I walked into the boss's office. Me: "I thought about what you said this morning, and you were absolutely right. I quit." Boss: "Whoa, don't be hasty. I can work it out so you're good the next couple of weekends and don't have to worry about the jobs." Me: "I already made up my mind. You tried to hold the fact that I have drill over my head and make me work the weekend you knew I was taking my wife out of town." Boss: "Well, go home tonight and think about it, and let me know in the morning after you've had some time to think." I went home and gathered all my uniforms up, washed them, and removed my name tags. I think he thought I was going to come back the next day and change my mind, because he had me scheduled for several jobs solo that day when I arrived at the office. He was sorely mistaken. I turned in my uniforms, collected my tools, and left after he and the branch manager both begged me to stay, saying that they didn't have anyone to take my jobs and I would be hurting the company if I didn't stay. I focused on school the next few months and wound up getting a job in IT where I was making a lot more money with a lot less stress on my mind and body. Edit. Thank you for all the kind words and awards. I wanted to clarify that this has been a few years ago and was not informed at the time about how the laws worked in regards to employers and military service, so I didn't know just how bad the way they were acting was. Since then, I've learned a lot and would probably have handled things much differently if I knew what I know now. It's all worked out in the end, and I know of at least one customer that stopped suing them after I left because the guy they had coming out to the site to replace me was not up to the standard they expected when I was out there. Have you ever had trouble getting time off from work that you needed? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I need a break from listening to you read all day. We've done this every single day for the past 2 years straight.
Would I be the jerk if I took my former landlord to small claims court, knowing she doesn't have the money and has a kid? To preface, I'm 22, finishing my bachelor's, about to start my master's program in the fall. Despite working nearly full-time, I don't have much money. So in August, I found myself in a situation where I had to move out of my house immediately and found a room being rented out on Craigslist for $800 a month. It was in a house with a mom and her 6-year-old daughter and another college student who was barely ever there. I paid a $500 deposit. I quickly found out that this lady was a bit wacky. She was in the midst of divorce and had some weird ideas about money. She told me many times that she hated working and wanted to get as much child support as she could, even if that meant her ex would never see the kid. He was a good dad and very involved. She didn't have a degree or much work experience besides the occasional part-time thing. She's 40. I ended up being able to stay with other family for free, so I gave her my 30-day notice and moved out at the beginning of January. She said she was going to deduct a $50 cleaning fee, but the rest of my deposit was good. When I was packing though, I heard her talking to a friend in the other room saying I was gullible and she was thinking about not returning it. I texted her in February, a month after I moved out, and she said she didn't have it, but she would get it to me ASAP. I texted again 2 days ago, and she didn't even reply. I know she doesn't have it, but I have things that I need that money for. Plus, I left the place spotless. I'm seriously thinking about small claims court, but I feel bad because I know she has a kid, and her kid is awesome, so I wouldn't want it to affect them. In California, if the deposit was retained, in bad faith, I'm entitled to up to 3 times the value of the deposit, so I'm thinking of threatening that. I don't like being put in this position at all. Update. Thank you guys. I don't know why I have so much guilt about this. I texted her saying that while I sympathize, legally she is not fulfilling her obligation to return my deposit within 3 weeks. I told her it's been 3 months and that she has 1 week to return the deposit in full, or I would pursue legal action and go for 3 times the amount of the deposit. I reiterated that I don't want to do that, I just want my deposit back. No reply yet, but we will see. Update 2. She said she didn't have it and said she would get it to me as soon as she could. And that was our agreement, not the 21 days thing. She also said, "You're acting really stupid right now, and if you do this, you of all people know it's going to come back to you. Someone will eventually threaten legal action upon you, and if you file, you will be filed against by someone, but on a much worse terms, if you sue me." I was just gonna let it go and settle for the minimum, but now I want to go for the max amount. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you sue the landlady or not? Please let us know.
I'd sue her for everything. Then again, I just love suing people.
Double booked seats with an entitled couple on a 12-hour flight. This happened back when I was a kid, but there are other stories here that reminded me of this. Cast of characters. We've got me. We've got brother and sister. We've got parents. We've got flight attendant. We've got entitled wife and entitled husband. The situation. We were on a flight from Miami to Bolivia as a family of 5 with 3 kids under 12. We're getting on the flight, sat down, when entitled wife and entitled husband come up to my row. I'm sitting in the same row with brother and sister. Entitled wife.
"Excuse me, you're in our seats."
Me, brother, and sister have all been well-versed in kid travel by this time, so we pull out our individual boarding passes and show her. We're also assigned these seats. Entitled husband.
No, you're wrong. Let me see those.
We don't give them over. My dad comes over to see why strangers are talking to us.
Excuse me, why are you talking to my kids?
Entitled husband.
They're in our seats. Look.
Dad. That's their assigned seat. They know how to read a boarding pass. By this time, we have attracted the attention of the flight attendant, who confirms that indeed, these seats have been double booked. Entitled wife and entitled husband are irate, demanding their assigned seats. Flight attendant leaves to go see what she can do for us. This whole time, entitled wife is making a big show of trying to store her bag in front of ours in the overhead bins and complaining loudly. Flight attendant returns and says, "Thank you so much for your patience. It was double booked, but it looks like we have enough seats in first class available for your party. If you could please follow me." Entitled wife and entitled husband sigh, relieved that finally someone will see reason. Entitled wife gathers her bag, and as entitled husband steps forward, flight attendant holds up her hand. "No sir, not you. If you 3, looking at me, brother and sister, will please join us up in first class, we'll make sure you're taken care of." The look on entitled wife's face as we politely grabbed our bags and moved to the coziest lapse of luxury our young selves had the fortune of lucking out on. I remember the meal making me have a headache, but the reclining seats, warm blankets, and sleep masks sure helped with all that suffering. Am I the jerk for not wanting to take our niece on vacation in 2022? My husband and I do not have kids, but we have many nieces and nephews. A number of years ago, when we were in our late 20s and finally financially secure, our oldest niece was in senior year of high school, and we decided to take her on a beach vacation for a week. This has since become a tradition where we take our nibbling on a vacation during their senior year. Since this began, there has always been one nibbling each year. Then in 2020 to 2023, there are no nibblings graduating high school, so we won't be taking one on vacation until 2024. We've always made it clear it's a senior trip, and not just us working our way through them. We intentionally want to do it this way, as we do not want to travel with them when they're younger. They're 17 or 18 when we take them, which means we can give them their own room. We keep a key and do adjoining rooms, but that gives all of us privacy. They can do more excursions and we can meet them for breakfast, or leave them unsupervised if we want to get a drink or a snack. We don't need to actively monitor them by water, and it's so much easier to airport travel with them if they're 17 or 18. A couple weeks ago, our sister-in-law said Jess was looking forward to planning her trip with us. Jess is next in line, currently in grade 9. Husband said she's rather eager since her trip is in 2024, but so great she's excited. Sister-in-law gave us death glares as I asked if we had misaged her, and sister-in-law said no. Jess is grade 9, but assumed she would be going in 2022 since she's next in line. Sister-in-law had ordered her travel books to help her plan, which we found odd, as we involve the nibbling in the planning, but we give them limited choices. We usually give them a choice of 3 locations, then from there a choice of resort. We told her that the trip is for senior year, so she needs to wait until 2024. Sister-in-law was angry, and Jess had had a hard time with the lockdown, so we offered to fly her out to visit us for a week. We live in a major city, for a change of scenery, but the major trip isn't until 2024. Sister-in-law is furious. Jess is disappointed but seems to get it. The older nibblings are on our side and said it was a fun thing for them in senior year, while other adults are conflicted, with some thinking we should just go through the list, taking 1 nibbling a year, regardless of the age. We are not parents, so may not be as empathetic as we should be. So, are we the jerks for wanting to wait until our nibblings are in senior year to take them on vacation? Edit. Nibbling is a gender-neutral term for a niece or a nephew. Did not realize it was weird until now. Edit. The first kid we did this for was Jess's older half-sister. Their biological dad, husband's brother, was widowed and had our oldest niece, then remarried to Jess's mother and had Jess and 2 more kids. This might be a factor in sister-in-law's reaction. I have no idea. Edit. We have talked to Jess directly. She is not upset. She was disappointed that her big trip wasn't next year, but understood the purpose of the trip. We've given her some location ideas as her mother had suggestions that are on the opposite side of the world. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for wanting to wait until their nibbling is in senior year to take them on a trip, or not? Please let us know.
Bruh, I'm still trying to get over the fact y'all be talking about nibbling.
Am I the jerk for walking out on dinner when friends ask me to leave? My group of friends made a reservation for dinner at a popular restaurant for 6 people, but when we got to the restaurant, one of my friends, let's call her person A, brought along her boyfriend without advance notice to any of us, hence making the total number of people 7. We all know her boyfriend well and are pretty chill with him, so we thought to ask the restaurant if 7 people is possible. Unfortunately, the restaurant was unable to accommodate 7 people as our reservation was stated for 6. This was also understandable as the restaurant was a popular one and packed during the night, so fair enough. At this point, person A, who is kind of the leader of our friend group, turns to me and says,
Okay, then I think you should leave so that we'll have 6 people.
I was flabbergasted and shocked when I heard that. My other friends kept silent and no one really spoke, so there was this awkward silence. I almost wanted to propose that perhaps we could have gone to a different restaurant down the street instead that could actually accommodate 7 people, for example. But I felt a surge of emotions and called her a heartless jerk. My friends all looked at me in horror, and person A clearly looked shocked as well. The next day, my friend, let's call her person B, texted me and said that I overreacted and I was a jerk for calling person A a name like that in public. I was confused by this as I thought that I wasn't the jerk in this situation, but maybe I was, I'm not sure. Am I the jerk? Edit. Someone in the comments raised a valid point. The rest of the friends were couples, aka 3 couples in this group, and I'm the only single person in the group. Person A's boyfriend said he couldn't make it when we made the reservation long ago, but he suddenly showed up at the restaurant last minute. Maybe me being the only single person in the group made me instantly the odd one out. Edit 2. Update. This thread is now locked, and I wanted to give some sense of closure and update. Thank you all for your insights and comments. I shared this thread with my friends, and they told me off and scolded me for actually sharing this in a public community. However, one of the couples, who I'm closest to in this group, reached out to me privately over text and told me that they felt bad and apologized for not speaking up. But that's it. I've had enough and will walk away. To emulate the example of Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, I would say, okay, you want to ask me to leave? Okay, fine. No problem, that's all I needed. I took it personal from then on. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know.
Sounds like OP needs to get some new friends.
All of our staff can't be thieves, can they? The very first hotel I worked at, the one with the half a sun on their sign, back in the 90s still had the old brass keys for room access. At one point, we started to get an increasing number of complaints from guests that money and items were being missing out of their rooms. In any hotel, you expect the occasional complaint, but this went from one every blue moon to several a week. We, of course, look into it, but can't find a pattern. It's not just rooms cleaned by a specific housekeeper. No staff member was on property every day. We had a report. Nothing added up. All of our master keys are accounted for, so it's not due to a lost master. Several months go by with this happening, and it's to the point our GM is basically begging corporate to let us replace all of the locks. For a 400-room property, this is an insanely expensive undertaking, so they're not too keen with spending the money. One day, one of our maintenance guys remarks to the front desk, "With as much money as that one guest must have spent to stay here so long, they could have rented a place cheaper." This was odd, as we had no long-term guests. Being near the House of Mouse, most of our guests stayed a max of 2 weeks. So the desk clerk asks them what room they saw this person go into. Maintenance guy gives a room number, and that room had actually checked out with the clerk earlier that morning. Our GM and a few of the maintenance guys go up to the room to prevent whomever it was from getting away while the desk clerk calls the police. Once the police show up and take the person into custody, we finally found out what was going on. This guest lived locally. They had trained as a locksmith, but due to being caught driving drunk numerous times in short periods, they were a felon and could not get bonded to actually work as a locksmith. So they decided to check into a hotel and in the middle of the night take apart the lock from the inside of the room and use their training and tools to make a master key for the property. The police ended up searching this jerk's place looking for the tools he used and any items we could identify. Found a few items, but what really caught their attention was the stack of receipts from pawn shops in the area. We speak to them and we recover quite a few more items. When the police asked this person why they kept coming back to us, he said it was because all the other hotels in the area were switching over to the new, at the time, electronic locks. We were one of the few decent hotels still using metal keys, and all of our cameras pointed towards the parking lots and not the rooms. Our GM goes to corporate with this info and asks for lock upgrades and more cameras. Of course, corporate says no. Apparently, an anonymous person contacted our insurance carrier shortly afterwards. They spoke to corporate and threatened to pull our insurance unless these deficiencies were fixed. Soon afterwards, we were being trained on the new electronic locks and camera system. Okay, to clear up some speculation, I was the anonymous person. My GM and I had a conversation, and he was frustrated and thinking of quitting. He was too good of a boss for me to have to hope we get another just as good. So I went to the one computer we had, which had a modem in it, fired up the old throwaway CompuServe account, and sent off an anonymous email describing the problems we had. My HOA complaint broke up an entitled mom's marriage. This happened a few years ago, but I still think about it. After being blessed with great neighbors over the years, I started taking it for granted. Then Luna, her 4 dogs, all the same breed, and family, 2 teens and a husband, moved in the house next door. It started off well enough. Luna was friendly and the kids and husband seemed nice, but she soon decided that the best place for her dogs to go potty was my backyard. I didn't agree, and after suffering in silence for a few weeks, I'm not very confrontational. I finally told her that my backyard wasn't her personal dog park. When they got home from work, they would let their dogs loose to go running in my backyard, to play and go potty. One day, I happened to catch them and came out on my patio to tell them to cut it out. The dogs turned around and started running towards me while barking aggressively. Fortunately, her husband called them off before the little ankle biters got to me. And it wasn't just the dog that liked to hang out in my backyard. Luna liked to walk around my backyard while talking on her phone. One of the things I like about my house is the privacy. It backs to the woods, so I don't have a lot of curtains on my back windows and doors. But since Luna liked walking around my yard, I was forced to curtail my habit of cleaning while not dressed. And it was creepy. Once, after it had snowed, I realized that someone had walked up to my back patio and had been peeping in my French doors. Not long after, someone left a gift of poo on my front porch welcome mat. Geez, I wonder who did that. But then, Luna seemed to want to repair our rather rocky relationship and asked me what time I got off work. We could do drinks and hang out. I thought, whatever. So I told her, but no get-together ever materialized. I realized later that she just wanted to know what time I got home from work. What she didn't know was that I sometimes worked at home. On one of those days, I caught her once again letting her dogs loose in my yard, so I took a photo and sent it to the HOA. I think she was also sneaking her dogs into my other neighbor's fenced backyard. The ramifications were swift. That complaint was the straw that broke the camel's back. The marriage was already on shaky ground, and the husband was tired of her and her dog hoarding. I only saw 4 dogs at a time, but there were more. I didn't notice because they all looked alike. The next thing I knew, she and the dogs had moved back to South America. The kids went to live with relatives/college, and the husband was acting like someone who won the lottery. He always seemed somewhat grumpy before, but after she left, he was smiling and friendly. Then he bought a Harley, got a girlfriend, and proceeded to rid the house of copious amounts of urine-stained carpets. He was eventually evicted from the house. Yes, they were renters, because owners were sick of the complaints and fines and decided to move back in. Luna apparently had a gift for upsetting the neighbors on my block. The weird thing is that there were a couple of vacant lots and a dog park less than a block away, but apparently her neighbors' yards were the best place to take her dogs. Students pranked me. I had the last laugh. I spent about 10 years teaching high school humanities at a small private school. For my first 2 years, I didn't have a classroom, just a small office. I would bring what I needed for each class on a cart and go from room to room, depending on which teacher had a prep at any given time. This was incredibly inconvenient, and not being the most organized of teachers to begin with, made things difficult to keep track of. There were a group of 11th grade boys who decided to make things a little more difficult for me. They were good kids, we got along well. I coached several of them on the school soccer team, but they decided that since my office would often be empty, it was a great place to prank. It would never be anything too serious, things falling over when I opened the door, or things disappearing for a day and then turning up in a different place the next day. Nothing was ever damaged, and I could never prove who it was, even though I knew. My school had mandatory final exams in each academic course. I didn't really think they were necessary, so I would generally make them pretty easy with a lot of preparation. I would give out study sheets and play review games for a couple of weeks before the test, and there was no reason the students wouldn't do well on them. I had approval of admin to do this, as they weren't particularly fond of the final exam rule either. It was a school board policy. A few nights before the offending boys had their exam, I had a brainwave. I created a second exam. Gone were the multiple choice questions and obvious things from the review sheets. In their place came detailed questions about concepts that were briefly mentioned in class. Essay question after essay question. Ambiguous questions with no clear answers. Definitions of words that there was no way they knew. It took a couple of hours, but I laughed the whole time. When the test came, I had the special exams at the bottom of the pile and handed them out to each of the 4 or 5 boys. I told my vice principal what was happening, and he insisted on being present. I started the timer and watched as the boys flipped over their papers. It was all I could do to keep a straight face. Eyes went wide, heads were shaking. Panic was setting in, especially as they saw all their classmates flying through their exams. One of the boys raised their hand. "Sorry, no questions during the final. You should be prepared based on your study sheets." I let them go for about 5 or 10 minutes of terror before I gathered the fake tests and gave them the real ones. They all passed with flying colors and never pranked my office again. It was glorious. Karen's sister demands to live with me. My sister, 22, married her boyfriend, 24, of 5 months a year ago. He doesn't have a romantic bone in his body and is a dense football player type. I asked my sister before she got married if she was sure about this, as they hadn't known each other very long, and I really wanted her to go to college. She had a family member offer to pay off her complete schooling. I offered to buy her a laptop and help with a car if she went to school. I thought her boyfriend was kind of meh, and told her on many occasions so. But she chose her boyfriend and wanted to get away from our parents, which I understood, and I did too, but by going to college. 6 weeks after getting married, she got pregnant. She didn't know it could happen that fast. I blame our parents and Christian education. She was thrilled though, and I tried to be happy for her. I worried for her financially and support her emotionally throughout the process. I threw the shower for her, bought her hundreds of dollars in gifts, and helped with anything I could. I moved about 9 hours away after the baby was born due to my husband's work. We bought our first home and we're finally financially secure. I'm a teacher with a master's. He's a software guy. My sister has been calling me night after night crying about how unhelpful and unromantic her husband is. He's a cabinet guy and she works at a daycare, so she can't afford a house like me at the moment, and she's upset about that with him. She doesn't want to be around him or let him touch her. He's a good, loyal guy, but unromantic. Didn't buy her a birthday gift, but took her for dinner. He takes care of his son and works, but doesn't make a lot at his job. She keeps comparing her husband to mine because he really treats me well and is quite romantic, and because he can afford to buy the things I want. Not that I ask for a lot, but we really had to work for our house and are in our late 20s. I've offered to pay for marriage counseling and personal counseling, as I feel like she may have some post-birth depression. She says because of the baby, she feels trapped. I told her that if things got bad, she could stay with me. Because she doesn't have a car, I'd have to do the 18-hour round trip with her. After I said that, she said she wanted to come for 2 weeks to scare her husband into doing better. Like, to me, that's childish, and I said no. My house is for if you are done. She got upset and said I'm not being here for her. But I'm not going to expel my time and energy to teach her husband a lesson. She called me back and said she's putting her husband on a 30-day trial and will live with me if he doesn't change. I just don't see what's so wrong with him. She's told me everything, and I'm just not wanting her to live with me now. I have 4 cats who are my babies, and she hates cats, and I feel like she's being childish, and I don't want to be a part of her game and waste my time. Update. When my sister called me tonight, she's been with a realtor looking at houses with her husband. I don't know how they're ready for that. I told my sister that I was not going with her 30-day trial and that she can't be playing games like this in her marriage. It's not healthy and the same BS our parents pulled, and that I wanted no part in it. I will pay for counseling if she needs it. I offered again, but stated that living with me was off limits. I told her she has a good man and that she needed to talk to him about her issues more, and they can make compromises together. I also talked to her about how crappy taking their son away from her husband would be. She was a bit short with me, but I think she understands. I love my sister, but I can't be the grown-up for her. I have my own life. I just want to say thanks, guys, for the advice. It's really helped me. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your sister move in with you or not? Please let us know.
I kind of feel bad for her husband, to be honest.
Entitled mom demands that I let her kid use my expensive binoculars. My lockdown hobby, to get me out of the house and maybe learn something, has been bird watching. I usually go out with binoculars, a bird guide, and a field notebook to write down what I've seen that day. It's a good solitary activity that gets me in the fresh air, communing with nature. I had a pair of small, not-so-great binoculars when I started, but decided to upgrade to a much better pair with all the money I'm saving not going out, or seeing people or doing things. FYI, good binoculars are pretty pricey. So I'm at a nearby bird sanctuary with a pond. The railings are extra wide, which is nice for balancing your guide and notebook easily, and I'm leaning on it, checking out the waterfowl, checking the guide, and making notes. A mom and her kid come down the boardwalk, and the boy comes over to me. "What are you looking at?" "These birds," and I name a few species that I see and point. He's around 7 or 8. "Can I see?" "Sure, they're just right there," pointing again. "No, through those." Oh crap. This kid wants my new, expensive binoculars during lockdown. "I'm sorry, but no," I cheerfully tell him. Now, I don't know if in non-lockdown times strangers ask to share binoculars with strangers, but I'm completely uncomfortable with this. I also have zero problem with the word no. Meanwhile, this kid looks like I've just spoken to him in a foreign language. I just go back to what I'm doing and the kid goes away. Of course, I hear the throat clearing of the entitled mom.
Little Johnny says that you won't let him use those binoculars to see the birds.
I do note that she said those and not your, which grated. Her mask is hanging from one ear. Super useful. Why, that's correct. I won't. Thank you for understanding.
Well, how will he learn if you won't let him use those binoculars?
Maybe you can get the equipment and guides, and you can learn together.
But we are here now, and he wants to see the birds.
Yeah, still not gonna happen.
That's not fair.
Lady, it's completely inappropriate for you to demand for me to share my expensive gear, especially during lockdown. No amount of your grousing is going to change my mind. Also, you are standing way too close to me, so please back away. And I went back to what I was doing. But my peaceful pastime is now kinda grr. I quickly got over it because I saw a wood duck. Also, there are so many birds. I had no idea. Speaking of birds, I wonder if Birds3214 is here today.
We always appreciate our loyal listeners who tune in day after day.
35 people walk into a pub. Sadly, this isn't the setup for a joke. So this happened a couple of years back in a pub I was working at. I worked the bar at this pub, which was pretty popular, especially on sunny days as we had a lot of outdoor seating and a pretty huge beer garden. Now, the story takes place one exceptionally hot summer Sunday. For those of you who have the joy of not being all that familiar with our tea and crumpet society, I'll enlighten you as to why this is a pain for working in a pub. Firstly, the moment the sun blesses our sodden gray land with its presence, we British come out of our thatched caves to bask in its glow like the lizard people our royal family is. This subsequently also means everyone had the exact same thought of, let's go have a pint at the pub and sit in the sun. Yay for bartending. The other noteworthy point here is that on Sunday, a roast is had. Beef, lamb, chicken, or pork with roasted potatoes, veggies, gravy, and Yorkshire puddings. All of which is wonderful unless you have to spend 2 hours cooking it. With that out of the way, this particular Sunday we were full, and I mean full. Bar 4 or 5 people deep. The 100 plus tables all double booked for turnover, and I found myself without a moment's respite between pouring drinks and telling people we were fully booked. During this manic rush, I spot a bit of commotion outside and see a group of roughly 30 to 35 people, including screaming kids, walking through the courtyard, ignoring everyone and into the beer garden. Once my colleague and I had thinned down the numbers at the bar substantially, I told him I was going to walk past to see what the huge group was doing. Anyone that's worked with real-life people, of course, knows that people suck. Hence why I just wanted to walk past and avoid interaction. Also, it's a pet peeve of mine when people just sit themselves down, ignoring all the staff and expecting us to accommodate them without even the courtesy of mentioning to someone that they're here. So I take a step past the threshold of the bar, always dangerous, and that day a choice I regretted, and walked through the beer garden, collecting empty glasses as I go. As I near the area, the group has settled in, as far away from the building as possible, I might add. I avoid eye contact at all costs. You're not going to come say hi, then I can't see you. Walking past the group, I'm spotted by a very angry woman, the Alpha Karen if you will, snapping her fingers at me to try and get my attention as I tried to get away. She stormed up to me and stared me dead in the face.
Excuse me? We've been waiting here for the last 15 minutes, and no one has come to give us the menus. What the heck are you all doing?
I'll admit, I was momentarily in shock, as the group had to walk through the courtyard and must have seen the crowds of people and stressed waiters everywhere. I'm sorry, madam, but I had no idea you were here. Did you speak with anyone to let us know? Then what I saw was a rage build just below her plasticized skin.
Yes, I spoke with the redhead.
No one that worked there was a redhead.
Well, anyway, I want some menus. We're starving.
I looked past her and asked how many there were.
We're 36 people. That's not a problem, is it?
She said, without so much as a hint of understanding why this was ridiculous. Well, yes, actually. That's quite a lot for a walk-in, and you probably saw on your way in we're extremely busy. I'm afraid we have no tables available, and we don't serve food in the beer garden. You'll have to try your luck at getting a table in the courtyard, but I can't imagine you'll be able to find enough seating for the 36 of you, and I simply can't hold tables for you, turning other guests away. The reality is that I could, but simply didn't want to. She stared at me for a moment and then said,
You don't serve food in the beer garden? Or you won't serve me food in the beer garden?
No, madam. The establishment does not serve food in the beer garden.
Ugh, fine. Look, can we just have chips then, for the kids? They're starving.
I thought about it for a moment, deciding if I was really willing to put up with this or if I should just say no and send them on their way. Against my better judgment, I said okay, but they would have to sit in the courtyard once the tables were available and asked roughly how many portions of chips they would be wanting. She replied 6, and I said that's probably fine, but you'll have to go inside to order. This did not sit well with her, and she started to get very cross. On my way back in, I swung by the kitchen to let them know what's up and to expect 6 chip orders, but not to rush them because the woman was in enormous pain. I get back to the bar and it's busy again, 3 to 4 people deep, so I immediately jump in and start pouring pints. A few minutes later, I hear,
Oh, for God's sake, this is ridiculous,
and immediately know who it is. This tiny angry woman pushes her way through the crowd and snaps her fingers at me to get my attention.
I want to order my chips. And hurry it up, the kids are hungry.
Okay, I'll put them on now. 6 portions, correct?
No, 17.
Sufficient to say, I was bewildered. Madam, that's not what we discussed. I'll have to see if the kitchen can even do that. We're very busy.
Well, go on then. Run along to the kitchen.
She barked. As I was about to, I hear,
Actually, can you make it 35?
Madam, I'll be honest with you. There's no way you'll get them all at once. It's simply too many for the fryer. It'll have to be in batches, and it's going to take a while as there are more pressing orders ahead of you. You will also need to pay up front.
I don't care. Bring them one by one if you have to. As soon as one is ready, bring it out. Bingo.
I went and spoke with the chef, explaining what was going on. Rude woman, many chips, one by one. He laughed, and we decided to do exactly as she asked. Bring on the malicious compliance. So, despite being very, very busy, as soon as one portion of chips was ready, I took it out. One portion, only one. She was not pleased.
What the heck is this? I said 35 portions, not one.
As I explained to you inside, madam, 35 portions is simply far too many for our fryers to handle, and there's a substantial number of other orders ahead of you. I had to try very hard to hide my grin at this point.
But, what the heck do you expect me to do with this?
Perhaps you could have 1 chip each per portion, and I swiftly turned and walked away. Following this, every 10 to 15 minutes, I would take out 1 more and only 1 more portion of chips to the group. By about portion 12, they had been there several hours and were fed up. They tried to complain to the manager, but she was so rude and disrespectful to myself, my manager, and other staff members that he dismissed her, stating that I had explained clearly to her that we were very busy, had told me to bring them out 1 portion at a time if need be. They left very angry, and we had 23 portions of chips paid for that the staff got to enjoy later on. Edit. Also, a few people have mentioned they feel bad for the rest of the group. Well, don't. I didn't mention it because it wasn't really relevant to the malicious compliance, but they were all pretty rude and finger-snappy. For anyone worried about the kids, they got the first bowl of chips, covered most of the table in ketchup, smashed 3 or 4 chips into the table, and left at least 1/3 of the chips. I don't think they were nearly as hungry as Alpha Karen tried to preach. Also, thanks for the awards, everyone. My mother thinks she's entitled to child support forever. For context, I'm a 25-year-old female, have moved out from my mother's place a year ago to live with my boyfriend. I live in another country even. I have 2 younger brothers who are 23 and 21 years old. My mother just recently called me and informed me that my father had sent her a document and signed letter saying he would be cutting off child support completely very soon. She was absolutely outraged by it and told me that he probably did it rubbing his hands and laughing about it. As usual, she's acting like she's the poor victim and things are being done against her with malicious intent, and it upsets me. She has always been this way. Nothing is ever her fault. So I did tell her, Mom, you're not the victim here. Child support is, like its name implies, to support the kids.
But it's all the income I have.
That's your problem, with only you to blame for. She did not like that response, of course. I've told my mother to get a darn job for years. Not so long ago, she was leeching off of my salary. Then she kept whining to me about her money issues when I moved out in hopes that I would be giving her money.
I don't know what I'm gonna do,
she'd say. And I know, get a job, was usually my reply. She's the laziest person I know. All day, every day, she sits on her butt and browses the internet. That's all she does. My brother and I would bring her job opportunities on a platter. She always found an excuse not to take it. It's only now that my father is actually going to stop paying child support that she's actively looking for a real job. Why? Because until now, she was comfortable resting on that. But what really drove me nuts is when she said,
He's asking for all of your situations. Maybe since your brother is disabled, he'll keep paying for him, and I can probably get him to keep paying for the others as well, since he's struggling to find work. But he will cut yours off for sure, knowing what a jerk he is.
So, 1. Way to use my blind brother as a money cow. 2. What the heck do you mean, knowing what a jerk he is? I'm 25 and I don't live with you anymore. There's 0 reasons why you should keep getting child support for me. In fact, since we're all adults, you shouldn't be getting any more child support at all. You shouldn't have for the past 3 years. Did you seriously think you could just demand child support forever and live the rest of your life getting free money instead of working for it like everyone else? What the actual heck? Am I the jerk for choosing my dog over my mom and her fiance? My dad passed when I was 15, and I'm now 17, male. Last year, my mom started going out with Anthony, and they just got engaged. Anthony wanted to move in, but the problem is he's severely allergic to dogs. My mom told me we had to get rid of Dax, my dog. Like, not even as a question, just straight up said that's what we're gonna do. I fought with my mom over this because he's my family, and that's what helped me get through losing my dad. Dax was my dad's dog that he rescued from a shelter when he was still a puppy, and we've had him since I was 11, so he means a lot to me. But my mom was like, nope, he has to go. We fought so much about it that I actually cried. Nobody wanted to adopt Dax though, and I had to beg my grandpa from my dad's side to take him, or else my mom was going to take him to a shelter. The problem was, my grandpa lives an hour away, and he can't do much physical stuff like take him out for walks, feed him, take him to vets, etc., and no one around to help him take care of a dog. My grandpa suggested I could move here with him, since all of my classes are on Zoom and I'm graduating in June anyways. I told my mom I want to move in with my grandpa so I can be with Dax. She got really mad about that, and she says that they, her and Anthony, are my family, and I need to be with them. But I told her, 1, Anthony's not my family. I have my own problems with him because he kept talking about being my new dad, and I don't like that crap. But he doesn't listen when I tell him to stop saying he's my new dad, because he's not. And 2, Dax is my family, and she made me get rid of him just like that. My grandpa's my family too anyways. Last week I got my stuff, and my uncle helped me move to my grandpa's house. My mom's still been mad. She's not gonna force me to come back, but she's still saying I'm being a really crappy son, that I'm choosing to be with my dog instead of with them. But it hurt too much being without him. He was taken to my grandpa's a week before I left, and all that time I was up crying missing him. And I know he missed me too, because he lost it when I got there. My mom keeps telling me to come back and stop being cruel with her, but I'm happy here with my dog. I get she's got someone new to be happy with, and that's cool, it's her life. But why can't I be happy too with my dog living with me? Does it make me a jerk that I basically did choose Dax over her? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know.
Definitely the mom. I'd choose Dax over her too, any day.
I defeated a Karen with Witchcraft. I'm not even sure how to start this one, so I'll just tell you the cast of major characters. We've got me, we've got Sentry, a crow, and we've got Karen, a pompous weirdo. This happened around a year ago, but I kept hesitating on whether or not it was worth being told, and then I had to think of a sufficiently clickbaity title. So, since moving into the apartment, I'd lost the ability to walk and needed a wheelchair, but my landlord wouldn't let me have a ramp. So, since I didn't have any friends or family and disability services in Kansas, I had to do something else for social interaction. I started throwing torn up pieces of stale bread and potato chip crumbs outside, which attracted a few types of birds. One time, a hawk came by and ate one of the sparrows I was watching, but if you love nature, you have to love all of it, not just the passive grazing animals. So I didn't chase it off. The hawk made eye contact with me through the window and gave me a little, like, what you gonna do? Later, some crows started coming by. So to feed the crows, I started getting popcorn and birdseed in my grocery deliveries. One of the crows usually perched in the tree overlooking my front door. If I didn't put popcorn out that day, she'd fly down and knock on the window next to my bed. In the winter, I'd see her footprints on my patio going up to the front door before she knocked on the screen. It wasn't just her either. Once she saw that I had food for her, she'd summon the rest of her friends. My neighbors saw this, and one of the neighbors came to talk to me through my window. Her cat was very much enjoying the show. We became friends, and she let me know that the car that kept parking in front of her apartment had a woman that gave her the creeps. Karen, enter stage left. Your other left. You know what? We'll just move the stage over to where you're already standing. I had seen the car enough times, but didn't really pay attention. But after what I was told, I started to. When my neighbor brought her dog out to go potty, Karen would glare at her. Karen didn't even live in our complex. My neighbor would park right in front of her own apartment, and she worked 2 full-time jobs, and people would speed down our road all the time. It made sense she'd park where she did, but Karen would show up and park there and refuse to move if asked. So the neighbor had to park across the street at the school parking lot instead and walk back. What was Karen even doing? She showed up, parked outside the neighbor's yard, sat there smoking an entire pack of cigarettes, then drove away, glaring at anyone that was anywhere near her while she was around, even if it was their own home. I brought this up with the landlord, who said that the road our front doors faced wasn't part of the complex, so they didn't care. The police said she wasn't doing anything illegal, so they didn't care. I thought it was creepy and stalky, and so did my neighbor, but I guess our opinions don't count. Well, by this time, I had become pretty good friends with Sentry. I had a particular bad fall one day. I fall down and hurt myself every day due to my lack of any kind of home help, but I'm used to it. One day it was worse than usual, and I had to call the paramedics. Karen had since chosen, slightly further back, spots to park along our curb, and was now choosing to not get out of the way for the ambulance that was trying to get me to the emergency room. When I got home, I decided that that was the last straw. If no human was going to help us against Karen, I knew who would. I would definitely rely on her. She came to check on me far more often than a human ever did. I popped 2 bags of popcorn, and as soon as I saw Karen light up a cigarette, I walked outside. I held up one of the bags of popcorn, shaking it. Sentry was already there in the tree looking at me, but I liked going the extra mile for her, just like she did for me. I walked right up to Karen's car. She wasn't even looking at me. She was busy looking down at something and smoking. I opened the bag and dumped it all over the hood of her car. Then I did the other one and walked inside. Alfred Hitchcock would have been proud of you, Sentry. I know my neighbor and I were, since Karen never came back. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my wife after what she did at my workplace? I, male 37, started working at my dad's friend's restaurant in 2016. Started off small, but was able to gain my employer's trust. And after seeing how I've been managing the restaurant on days he wasn't available, he decided to assign me to handle restaurant management. That means overseeing day-to-day operations, handling customer complaints, providing service, managing shifts, and putting together schedules and so on. I'm not really the manager, but the staff thinks I am. My relationship and interaction with the staff have changed a bit, but it's got nothing to do with my behavior. My wife is my biggest supporter. She was thrilled after I told her I'm directly handling management, but I made it clear I'm not the manager, so I have limited authority. I'm not the ultimate decision maker in this establishment. Still, she went to tell everyone that her husband is now the manager of his workplace. Even posted about it, but I told her to take it down immediately. She showed up at the restaurant, doesn't normally eat there, and brought her friends with her. There were 5 of them. She invited them for lunch and ordered plenty of dishes. Then she embarrassed the waitress by refusing to pay, telling everyone she's the wife of the manager and she shouldn't pay. She started arguing with the waitress, then went home. In 2 hours, I got a call from the waitress wanting to talk about what happened and why I fired her. I was shocked. I had no clue. She showed me the message that was sent from my Facebook, but I swore I didn't do it. I didn't even know my wife came to the restaurant. Turned out, my wife sent the message on my behalf and fired the waitress, claiming her behavior was rude and unprofessional. I was livid. I got berated by the manager after he found out, and I begged and explained that it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, and was able to give an alibi as to when this message was sent. Thankfully, he was patient and graceful. I got home and I confronted her. She confirmed everything, even the message. I blew up. Told her she almost caused me my entire job with her unacceptable behavior. For the millionth time, I told her I'm not the manager and she needed to stop using this as an excuse to behave like this. She started crying after I told her to apologize to the waitress after this, packed her stuff, and left. I was so angry, I smoked a cigarette even though I've been trying to quit. Her parents, my in-laws, called, demanding to know what their daughter did other than be excited for my new position, and that I was wrong to cause her to cry when all she's ever been is supportive and encouraging. After they insisted I mishandled this argument, I just stopped talking to them. I'm now required to visit as soon as possible and bring flowers and apologize to my wife for yelling, but I haven't done anything yet. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Hey, if she packed her bags and left, it sounds like the problem is already solved.
Guests are mad over more than one person with the same name. For the purpose of this post, my name is Sarah. The hotel I work at has 3 of us with this name. Myself and another girl are regular FDAs. The third one is operations manager. After about a month, I noticed guests started realizing there are 3 of us with the same name. And as with the staff, this creates some confusion. Someone will call or come in saying they spoke to me. I would stare blankly and try to figure it out before I realized, oh, I'm sorry, there's more than one Sarah here. Would you please give me your name? And guests will always just look confused and sometimes offended. Less than often when people notice, they just laugh and brush it off. More often than not, people get confused or offended. Yesterday's call was a prime example. Me. Thank you for calling our hotel. This is Sarah. How may I help you? Him.
Yeah, I'm calling about my comped stay, which you gave me to accommodate me from a bad experience.
First of all, we don't comp future stays, and I'm so glad. My last hotel did that all the time, and all it did was elicit unnecessary issues. If you had a bad experience, we will comp your stay and/or find another way to accommodate you for that stay. More points, free gift shop items, late checkout, etc. Not a future one. Me. Oh, okay. I was confused as heck trying to handle this because he was so abrasive. Him.
Yeah, so I want to come in tonight.
Me. Okay, I think I need to speak to a manager first about this or transfer you to one. I cannot just make a reservation and comp it without management approval. FDAs don't have that authority. Him.
You told me it was comped.
Me. I'm sorry, I believe you have the wrong person. Was it a manager who told you this?
Yeah, Sarah X.
Me. Oh, that's not me. I have the same name, but that is my operations manager. She isn't in right now, but I will. Him.
What?
Me. There's more than one Sarah at this property. Him.
Well, are you gonna make my reservation? I want to come in today.
Me. I would have to talk to a manager first about making a reservation for a comp stay. If you give me your name, I can leave a message for my manager and click. I asked my manager, and she said no one was getting a future comp stay, which confirmed what I mentioned earlier. The fact that he was such a jerk and never gave me his name also confirms he was full of crap. Sometimes guests will waltz in and say some BS like, I was on the phone with you and you told me XYZ. I'm sorry, that was another person with the same name. If you provide me with your name and the nature of the conversation, I will be happy to help. They literally do not believe us most of the time. Would I be the jerk if I just up and left my family for a few days? I'm definitely the responsible party in my family. Significant other, 1 biological kid, 3 stepkids, 3 dogs, and 2 cats that manages this household as far as financially and keeping it presentable. A little more than 2 weeks ago, I had surgery that put me on my butt. I stayed in the bedroom or at the kitchen table all day, every day, and was never awake for more than 3 hours at a time. It's been rough, but I'm on the mend, and now I can drive and stay awake for a reasonable amount of time, and I'm not on meds anymore. So during my 2 weeks or so of being down, my house is now trashed. My family has destroyed it. It looks bad, it smells bad, and I'd be embarrassed to have company come calling. I scrubbed this house the night before surgery to the point you could eat off my floors, which is pretty much how I keep my home all the time. I don't feel like it's my job to come in after more than 2 weeks and clean up for my lazy, disrespectful family. So I'd like to get a hotel a couple of hours away. Leave them a note telling them why I'm gone, when I'll return, and what I expect to be done before I come home. If it's not done, I would leave again, and I'd make that very clear in the letter. I'm also planning to tell them that I will use the Christmas savings money for every additional day I stay in a hotel. So the longer it takes them to get crap done, the less toys and such they'll get for Christmas. I feel incredibly disrespected. I'm ashamed of my home and my family for the way they have allowed it to get. I've spent every moment where I feel even a little bit capable of it trying to clean this house up enough that I'm not disgusted. I can't keep up, and I shouldn't have had to try. I know it typically falls on me to clean, and they've always had the expectation that mom will take care of everything, but I've warned them that they have to start taking on some responsibilities. It's not fair to me that they get to go live it up, and I just have to stay home and clean to feel comfortable in my own home. So, would I be the jerk if I just took off for a few days and left it in their hands? Also, I cleaned up any mess that I made in the bedroom and at the table, as well as cleaned my bio kid's room, as she is on visit with her dad for a week. Everything else, I feel like it's their mess to clean. Want to add, they all left me alone for the weekend with the pets and went camping, assuming I'd clean the house while they're gone. They came straight home this morning and have been in bed since.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.